Okay, here we go. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 234. Now, start playing.
Flight 209, are you cleared for takeoff?
Roger.
LA 123.9.
Roger. Less than
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in a northern Atlanta suburb. In this episode, terror drones, misfired weapons, and a bumped-up bum. The latest adventures of Miami Hick, and a new Plain Tales episode, Whoosh, Bang, Oops. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 234 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It is an aviation podcast. We talk about aviation news and answer a whole bunch of feedback from our great APG community. And my name is Captain Jeff. I'm a captain for a major U.S. legacy carrier. And joining me today, this will be edited out, of course, because I wasn't ready to play my intro music. From across the pond in jolly old England, we have Captain Nick.
I'm going to have to come over there and sort you guys out. I really am.
I didn't really mean to play that one, but it just worked out that way.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
hello, sir. How are you?
Well, I would say thank you very much for that kind intro, but I think this week I can probably give that one a miss.
Okay.
So, hello to all the lovely APG listeners. I'm going to ignore the rest of the crew for a small duration, give them the cold shoulder. I am the oldest one here, and I'm treated like this. Can you believe it? It's just not on.
Oh, that's right. We're supposed to respect our elders. Sorry.
We are, yes. That includes you, Captain Jeff.
Okay.
So I'm an Airbus guy over here in Europe, flying wide-body aircraft and a bit of military experience in the long-distant past. Here to answer any questions you have, and looking forward to another great show, Jeff.
We're looking forward to it as well, and also joining us,
Doctor? Doctor?
the Flying Doctor.
Doctor?
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 Doctor? Doctor? Doctor? Doctor? Doctor?
Dr. Steph.
Well, hey guys. Hope everyone's doing all right this evening, afternoon, whatever time it is.
We're doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. Today has been a fantastic day, and I think we're going to get into that in just a few minutes here.
In just mere moments, we'll hear all about your adventures. And also, sitting right next to her, actually, I was going to say that Dr. Steph is from somewhere in the Carolinas, but not today. She's actually sitting right next to this dude we call Miami Rick in Miami.
Hey everybody, I'm this dude everybody calls Miami Rick.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sitting down in Miami with Dr. Steph. I am a freight dog by trade. I am a 747 pilot with a major cargo airline here in the U.S. Previously, I was a 777 freighter with a major airline down in South America, and then before that I flew passengers on the 767 all over South, Central, North America and Europe. So yeah, happy to be here, and looking forward to 234. It's going to be another great one.
It is, and it's really great because the entire crew is here today, which is just a minor miracle. Yay. Thank you. The live audience is applauding. And so we mentioned that you two are sitting right next to each other, and you're in Miami. So tell us what is going on there, or do you want to talk about it?
No, we can talk about what's going on. So we're just, yeah, we've been hanging out today. I got in late last night. I had some personal business in Miami today, so we took care of that. But we actually woke up really, really early this morning and went out to the airport and got into a little Cessna 172 and went for a little sunrise flight over Miami Beach, which was really amazing. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a chance to witness Rick's flying skills. So
I
now
did.
give us the honest truth. I mean, is he all cracked up to what he purports to be?
Well, actually, I hired someone, paid someone actually to do the flying. I sat in the back.
Okay.
I was up front with this other dude. I have no idea.
This other dude that, yeah.
So I guess you guys took turns flying?
Yeah, we did.
Well, actually, Steffi did most of the flying. I just taxied out to the runway and went, here you go. And so she did all the flying, and then she gave the airplane back to me at like 300 feet off the ground when it was time to land. Yeah. And the only reason why she gave the plane back to me is because I was on the left and she's not used to landing.
Yeah, I'm not used to being on the right, and it's not my airplane, to be honest. So, and I'm not the one who's checked out in it, so I just felt like that was probably a better call.
Well, very good. That sounds like fun. So you
it was
around Biscayne Bay or something?
So this is what we did. So basically, Tamiami Airport is this little tiny airport. Well, not really little tiny airport.
It's pretty big compared to most of the airports that I usually fly into and out of, to be honest.
I mean, it's got 2 runways, 9 left, 9 right, and it's got a 1331. It's got basically the same setup as every airport down here in South Florida, because the wind patterns out here are east to west, because you basically sit out by the coast, and during the day you have just radiation heat and seaside convection and all that kind of stuff that just makes the wind patterns flow from east to west. So that's how kind of like the runways are oriented into the wind that way. So you got 2 runways, 5,000 feet. 1331, I think, is like just over 4,000 feet. So it's a biggish airport. It's got an ILS on the left, on the right hand side. It's got a couple of GPS approaches. So basically, what we did is we took off from runway 9 left, flew out over Biscayne Bay, out towards there's what's called Stiltsville, actually. That
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All these houses out on the water just on stilts. So we flew for a minute.
Yeah, when you're coming in at Miami International on 3-1, you are out over there over those things.
Yeah, 30 into MIA.
Or whatever, 30.
Yeah.
30, 31, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So we did that. Then we flew. So we got out to the Key Biscayne Lighthouse. Really cool little lighthouse. Flew up the beach, Biscayne, Key Biscayne. We flew over Fisher Island, across the Port of Miami, then down from South Beach all the way up to Government Cut, just before the Charlie Shelf from Fort Lauderdale Airport. And Charlie Shelf, what that means is Charlie as a type of airspace. For you guys and gals that don't know about airspace here in the U.S., you have Class Alpha airspace, so A airspace from 18,000 feet to flight level 600. Then you have Class Bravo airspace, which is basically around all your busy internet. Oh, there you go. Beautiful. Bravo International, Bravo airspace, and then Class Charlie airspace and Delta airspace and all that stuff. So you basically Class Charlie airspace. You wanted to stay away from the airspace that goes all the way to the ground before, without any clearance, and we didn't want to really get into that airspace. So we were just out. Yeah. So Steffi very, she skillfully turned the airplane around, and then she took us over. What was it called? That place where we had brunch when?
It was the Pelican.
The Rusty Pelican. Rusty Pelican.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah. We went right over it. I got a great picture. I'll send it to you guys.
Yeah.
Just like to point out that Neville Bounds in the chat room says he's got a Charlie Shelf. He needs to get down to the gym more often.
Right.
No, that deserves a
beautiful.
And I think this is the first time we've ever had the crickets played in the first.
This has got to be a new record, really.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm particularly proud of that.
You should be.
I am.
Yeah. No, it was an awesome flight. Yeah. Though. It was like couldn't have planned it better for the sunrise. Like we were out right over the beach as the sun came up. It was fantastic.
It was really cool.
Nice.
Really cool.
Nice.
Then we landed, and then we went to this, after dealing with rush hour traffic, which felt great, because as we're flying out, we flew right over US 1, which is one of the main, I guess, highways here in South Miami. And we saw nothing but little, red brake lights all the way up. And
we were just laughing. We were like,
just like all those
Suckers
people going to
going to
work. You know, we're up here
That's
flying.
unfortunate.
You know, so it was pretty great. So after we landed, I guess the joke was on us because we kind of had to deal with that traffic to get over to the place where we had breakfast, which is this little coffee house out in Perrine called Walter's Coffee House. I've been going to that place for years, and actually I hadn't been to that place in like 5 years, but we went there. Had a very, very hearty American.
It was healthy.
Oh, it was healthy.
It was
It's healthy-ish.
Ish.
You know.
Yeah. I had an omelet called Everything in the Kitchen Sink, or Everything But the Kitchen Sink, or something like that.
And she ate the kitchen sink too, so
I
I
did.
don't know. That's like a little bit of a misnomer there. So.
You got to have your protein and dairy.
All your major food groups.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, your faucets and your all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I think
And your
porcelain
garbage
and metal.
disposal unit.
Porcelain and metal are part of the major food groups.
Yeah,
these days.
exactly. Part of the food pyramid, you know. Well, she's a doctor. She knows about this stuff.
So are you going to be hanging out there for long, Steph, or do you have to get back home?
No, I have to go back home. I got to work tomorrow, so I'm heading
Oh.
back tonight.
Okay.
Hopefully, they've resolved whatever air traffic control issue they've been having in Miami today.
Some kind of power outage, I think.
Yeah. So there was a ground stop earlier today here just because of a power outage at Miami Center.
Really? Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
yeah, I think so.
Oh, no.
I could be wrong.
I think Miami ATC did not pay their power bill.
Power bill,
apparently.
yeah.
Is that what it was? Oh, no.
I don't know. My flight still says it's on time, so
Okay.
hopefully it's on time because I do have to work tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have to go to work tomorrow. Well, I'm not going to work tomorrow. I am heading out to. So this is basically the deal. As you guys and gals know, I live in Miami, but my base is up in Anchorage, Alaska. So it's a little bit of a trek, which means that before I usually I bid and get trips that don't actually start in Anchorage. Usually get trips that start out, in the lower 48. But this time around, I have a trip that actually does start in Anchorage. So I have to get up to Anchorage before my trip starts, obviously. So I'm heading up there tomorrow morning. I'm flying through Dallas and then Dallas to Anchorage, and then on Sunday, like midnight, just like I think like the flight takes off like at 12:30 Sunday morning. I fly from Anchorage down to Cincinnati, and then I commercial from Cincinnati to Chicago, and then I'm there for like a day and change, 24 hours, and then I go over to Seoul, South Korea, and then so begins my my next rotation. So back to work tomorrow as well for me. I went over to the AME, Aviation Medical Examiner, today to get my physical taken care of, which is mine wasn't due till next month, but I figured just might as well go and get it done. Did that, and health-wise, I'm good to go. So happy to report that everything's good in the medical department.
So tell me, you weren't due until September, but you did it in August. So does that mean everything now is shifted 1 month earlier?
Well, yeah. So basically, what's going to happen here is I'll forward my new medical certificate to the records department at the airline, and they'll just reset everything a month earlier. Well, and basically, what I was, I just figured, just might as well get it done because it's
You're not like me. I'm Mr. Procrastination, and I was really sweating it out this month because a couple of weeks ago, I thought that was plenty of time to look at my AME's online scheduling site, and it said there was a note in there. It says, I'm leaving on vacation on the 25th of August through sometime in September. So if you need a physical, you need to book early. And I went, okay, so let me look at your schedule. Nothing available. And
Really?
I'm thinking,
Uh-oh.
no, I don't want to try to find a new AME. And so luckily I had his information in my contact list on my phone, so I sent him a text and said, if you have anything open anytime, I'm there, please. And so luckily he texted me a few days later and said, I got an opening at 10 o'clock a.m. Tuesday, which was just a few days ago, and or a couple of days ago, I guess. And I said, I'm there. So I got it knocked out, before. I think Acme requires that we get the notification to them by the 25th of the month that it's due. So I got it in a couple days to spare. So, and I'm good as well for another 6 months.
I have to say I kind of prefer our system, Rick, because we can get our medicals done like a month in advance, but the actual date doesn't change. So
Oh, that's
It
nice.
still remains 6 months from your due date, as it were.
I
Oh,
wish it
nice.
were that way with us, because then I would try to get it done perhaps, the month before. Probably not. Nah, never mind. I'd procrastinate just as I do now.
Wouldn't change
So,
things.
no, it wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that, like, I figured, just get it done, get it out of the way, because next month I have my first recurrent on the 7.4. It's been 6 months since I did my initial checkout on the sim, so every 6 months we have to go back to the old box or the simulator and do some maneuvers here and there, little scenarios, engine failures, hydraulic failures, all kinds of things that we have to be well versed on to be able to go back out to the line and operate the aircraft safely. So I figured, just get the medical stuff out of the way. Don't have to worry about that. And then next month, just do that. Take care of
You
the sim.
got it. No, 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 no. You got to do it the way that I do it. You wait until the very last minute, as I did, and you're hitting all the. It's almost like we planned this, but we didn't. I just went through recurrent training myself over the weekend. So that's how I started my week. Saturday and Sunday in the box, and we did all the stalls and wind shears and all that wonderful stuff. Actually, it was pretty good this year, although we didn't do any hand flying, really,
Really?
per se. Yeah.
Wow.
But I mean, we did a little bit, but not what I think we should be doing. But that's neither here nor there. But got a really good training, a lot of go-around training. That's a big emphasis item with many of the world's airlines in the last year or two. A lot of botched go-arounds out there. So our company
Oh, yeah.
wants us to make sure that we know how to do it. They've actually changed the procedure a little bit more and try to improve success rates on successful go-arounds and such. So,
Well, the thing is that the thing with go-arounds though is, and as I shared with you last show, you really, and out on the line, you don't really get to fly those too much. So when you find yourself actually flying a go-around, you actually it's not like you forget. It's just that you're so caught up in.
It's just more of a surprise.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
that's
a total factor.
exactly, and
Yeah,
and it gets to the point where. So when do we start accelerating? When do we start cleaning the airplane up? Is the gear even up? If you notice, a lot of times, a lot of these YouTube videos of airplanes going around, the airplane does go around, and then the gear stays down for a long time. So it does kind of startle you a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, good that we're getting more go-around training. I think it's
Yeah, so got my recurrent training, so I'm good for another, at our company, 9 months for that, and
Nice.
then 6 months for my physical. Got that done on Tuesday, and then yesterday, yay, I got to do my civic duty here in the county of Fulton in Georgia, the state, at the Fulton County Courthouse, and I was a juror. Now, this is like the 4th or 5th time that I've been summoned. And in the past, one time I just called the night before. I was in a standby group, and I didn't even have to go in. 2 of the other times I had to go in and kind of just sit around the jury assembly room for hours and hours and hours, and then they say, well, we don't need you, and go home. So I was kind of expecting the same to happen this time. And I was the second person that they called. So I thought, okay, my luck ran out. My number is up. And so I was juror number 2, and we were told to assemble a couple floors down at a certain courtroom, and then they go through the jury, what do they call that, jury selection process. And guess what? I was one of 6 picked to be on a jury. And they said, okay, we're about to get started with the trial. Does anybody want to eat? And we're going, yeah, it's time for lunch. We need to eat. So we had a bite to eat, came back, assembled in the jury deliberation room, and then they brought us in. It's just like the stuff you see on TV. This is the first time I've ever been in a trial, a real trial, and a juror. And they come in, all stand, as the jury coming in. We're going like, really? They're standing for us? That's cool. Anyway, so I got to participate in a jury trial, and the there was only 6 of us, I guess, because it was a small trial and state court, whatever. They didn't need the. I thought that all jury trials needed 12 jurors, but for some reason only 6 were picked, so that was it. And We deliberated after we heard about 2.5 hours worth of defense and prosecutor evidence and witnesses and that kind of thing. And one of the people on the jury said, "Nope, I'm not convinced." 5 of us were voting one way, the other person voting the other, and we went back in. The judge basically spanked us a few times, told us to go back and try harder, and then another couple of hours go by, and so about 3.5 hours total of deliberation. We basically sent the note, we can't convince this other person to, vote the way we're voting, and so it was a mistrial, a hung jury.
Wow.
So it was an
It was a
interesting
good way to
experience.
spend your day then. Yeah.
Oh, it was a great way to spend my day.
Good use of your time and
Yes.
efforts and
Yes.
resources.
You got paid a lot of money for it, I imagine.
I got a whole $25. Well, I haven't gotten it yet, but I'm going to get paid $25 for my time.
Woohoo!
I'm very impressed. How well hung was the jury?
Well, thanks for noticing. Oh, no, we're not going to even go on with that one, are we? No,
No.
we're just going to leave that one
It
alone.
wasn't me, just for the record.
Okay, so anyway, how about you, Captain Nick? We've all heard about Miami Rick and Dr. Steph, our last several days. How about yourself? How's your week been going?
Well, I'm on doing my standby month, so it's horrible because
Okay.
you sit around and you wait for a trip, and then they mess you about, and then you eventually go somewhere, you come home again. But I might have mentioned on the last show that I was supposed to be in Atlanta. I ended up in Detroit. Well, when I got back from that show, that trip, my line manager very kindly gave me the days off I would have had I gone to Atlanta, because I had a bit of a whinge to him. So I've actually been doing nothing, except try and sort the house out. We did have a flood a while back, and we're having some flooring replaced. So the house is a bit of a mess, which accounts for a lot of the mess behind me. But no, doing domestic stuff, and then I've got a bit of a head cold, so I'm still not back at work. So apart from that, everything's fine and beautiful. Thank you very much. I got a new T-shirt.
Yay! And you got the
Yay.
T-shirt.
Yeah, I saw that. What kind of? I'm trying to make out to figure out what kind of airplane that is.
You can't work that one out?
Oh, it's okay. The Phantom.
It's a Phantom, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to see what you can't tell from.
Yeah, some
that
of it's hiding
perspective
behind
there.
your microphone there.
Yeah, there we go.
Wow, yeah. But in honor of today's plain tales, that is.
Very
Why
nice.
don't you move that microphone another way? Oh, talking about a hung jury. All right. Now it is time to move on to the Coffee Fund. The Coffee Fund. Why is it not playing? I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. I love Java, sweet and hot. Whoops, Mr. Moto, I'm a coffee pot. Shoot me the pot and I'll pour me a shot. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. Oh, slip me a slug of the wonderful mug or something like that. I'll cut a rug till I'm snug in a jug. A slice of onion on a raw one. Jaw one. Way to percolate. I love coffee. Okay, I got my singing out of the way. Thank you for bearing with me for that. Turn that down a little bit. It's my backup group that I keep with me at all times. And since the last show, this is going to be a nice short one. That's what she said. The Coffee Fund Classic. We have 2 folks who have contributed to the Coffee Fund. We have Nico Rieger and Chris Randall. Thank you very much for your generous contributions, gentlemen. And no new patrons. So a couple different ways to contribute to the fund. Keep us going here at the APG. And you can find out all about it at the airlinepilotguy.com/coffee page. Again, airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. Oh,
slip me a slug from
that wonderful mug. Thank you, Judy. All right, that's enough. Onion and a raw one. I don't know if that's the right. Nope, that's the wrong lyric. Oh well. Enough of that. Let's continue on with the news.
Stand by for news.
I too missed the ink spots. I was looking at the chat room comments about, and that's exactly why I'm not playing it anymore. I got just sick and tired of, not being able to monetize the videos because the algorithm kept flagging the ink spots singing the Java Jive. And what's really suspicious about that whole thing, by the way, this will not be in the audio podcast. The suspicious thing about it is that on YouTube, when the ink spots singing the Java Jive is flagged as copyright violation, it's a different company every single time. There are like 5 or 6 different companies that claim that they have the copyright. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, 'cause I thought you had you got something like in the mail or something sent telling you not to, because you
No,
keep talking
on
about
YouTube,
it now.
On YouTube, they basically say, look, you're not in trouble, but you're not going to be able to monetize your video. Because then it allows the people that supposedly hold the copyright, they can now put a link on your video, and then people can, hey, did you like that Java Jive by the ink spots? Well, click here, and then you can buy it, and then they get some money. But I think it's a scam because if it was one company that legitimately held the copyright, it would be the same exact company every single time. But it's a different one almost every time.
Huh.
So how can several different companies hold the same copyright? I don't think so.
They each want a little bit of your money, apparently.
Yeah, it is a scam, as Neville says. So, yeah, content ID. It's a great. I understand why they use the system, and because there are legitimate people. There are people legitimately breaking copyright and such. But anyway, enough of that. So I just decided to come up with a hokey karaoke version, which is probably copyrighted as well. Don't tell anybody. But I guess, short of me pulling out a keyboard or playing my trumpet or something,
You should so do that. Like you play the melody and we'll sing.
You know what? I might actually do that. Just record myself playing the piano or playing the trumpet and then singing, and then there.
It's like trying to monetize that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sucker. Monetize this.
I'll give you something to monetize.
Play the trumpet, Richard says. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I just played the news thing. That's a great idea, Mila. What's Mila say? We should record our own Coffee Fund song. Yes. Okay. You have it's your job now, Mila, to come up with a way to record our own song. That'd be great, actually. We encourage the community involvement and all this stuff. All right. Going back over here to Evernote and the news folder. Now, I shared the feedback folder with everyone, not the news folder. We only have a couple items in here, and then we'll be moving on to the feedback. So let's start off with this kind of concerns me a little bit. It's an article in the Daily Beast, thedailybeast.com, The cheap commercial drone the militant group deployed to bomb Syrian. Oh, that must be a caption for a picture. So over in Syria, Hezbollah has been using I don't know what kind of a drone it is, but it's not like one of those fancy Predator or Reaper drones that the U.S. military uses. It's like basically an industrial grade quadcopter, I guess, with a camera mounted on it. But this thing flies over wherever they want to bomb, and they drop like grenades or possibly Chinese-made MZD-2 artillery submunitions. And I'll include a link to the video in the show notes. You can watch it yourself. There's the on-drone camera video where you can see these things being dropped down on targets on the ground, and you can see people running out of the. They go, "Hey, look at that drone! Oh, it's dropping something. I bet this is not a good thing." And then you see the explosions and everything else. I'm thinking, wow, they've decided to go low tech. Although, I guess anytime you're using a drone, it's not really low tech. It's kind of higher tech, but it's not as high tech as what some of the developed countries are using, like the U.S. and others.
I mean, it's readily available.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be super low tech, but
what's scary about it is the fact that they're using it very effectively, not spending a lot of money on it, and it's something that anybody can go out there and do and drop things like this anywhere. That's the scary part of it to me.
Yeah.
Certainly, yes, but we've seen anti-drone equipment being developed. British Aerospace have got a system. So with the suitable counter-drone jammers, I can see them being able to protect themselves. The trouble is that if you're talking about a fairly big city and you employ something that stops them going anywhere in that city or in a big area, that actually prevents anyone from legitimately flying their own photographic drones, which is a bit tough for them. But I guess if you've got the potential of having explosive being flown in, it's probably the safest option, just to do a blanket GPS jam, and then you have to jam the frequencies that control it as well. So it is feasible, but not ideal.
I don't know about you, but I'm going to go with those eagles, especially trained eagles that we talked about in a previous episode.
Just fly by and grab the drones out of the air.
Snatch the darn thing out of the air.
I like those.
Yeah, you can't beat Mother
Very
Nature.
American.
Nature. Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Actually, it was
how many eagles they've got, because if the bloke sees an eagle coming up to his drone, he's just going to press the go bang button, isn't he?
Maybe, yeah.
There'll be one less eagle.
These
Well,
were
one less eagle,
drones.
but it won't be dropped on the ground. I don't know.
Yeah, those are eagles in the Netherlands, I think, that were training them.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
According
There's got to be a joke there somewhere.
Probably. I don't know what it would be, but anyway. No, you didn't miss hardly anything, Fabian. Welcome, everyone, in the chat room. That's a quick note to everybody listening to this show. If you want to be part of the live recording, follow us on Twitter at APG Crew, and also go to your iOS or Android app store. I guess it's Google Play for Android and the Apple App Store, and download right now your free Airline Pilot Guy app, or if you want to pay for the pro version, just a couple bucks, so you don't see any advertisements. And you'll get push notifications when we do the show live. And we record this show using YouTube live streaming. Usually, I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to say when. Sometime during the week, and then sometimes
If we're lucky.
Sometimes not.
various times of the day.
Multiple times during the week.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
Micah in the chat room saying eagles sounds like a bunch of desperados to me, Jeff.
Ah,
good.
Desperado.
I see what you did there,
Yes,
Micah.
yes. Very
That
clever.
deserves
Yeah,
a rim
very
shot.
nice.
Okay. Oh, and we talked about drones, and I didn't play the drone sound effect. Dang it.
Have you got an eagle sound?
Yeah.
Is
Very
that
good.
one? Is that one getting blown up?
Sound like a turkey.
Yep.
I don't know what bird you're trying to.
I don't know.
I think that's a dodo, Jeff.
Have they heard? No, that's frogs. Well, you know what I think? That's what I think. All right.
There you go.
Let's move on.
I think we just
Speaking
need
of
to leave it
turkeys-
that Jeff sounds like a turkey. Yep.
Speaking of turkeys, a packed holiday flight from Ibiza
Ibiza.
was delayed on the tarmac after a police officer's gun accidentally went off inside the cabin, it's reported.
Whoops.
The Vueling aircraft was preparing to depart for Madrid Barajas Airport in Spain when the weapon discharged in front of terrified passengers. Fortunately, the bullet shot into the unidentified officer's luggage, missing both him and surrounding flyers, according to local media. The incident delayed flight 3420 for half an hour, while engineers were called in to check for damage on the airplane, and they said they didn't find any. Actually, interesting. Protocol dictates officers are required to hand over their guns to the pilot. However, as one of them went to do so, the weapon accidentally discharged inside a suitcase. Luckily, the bullet struck the inside of the case and did not leave it. So it sounds to me like not only did this happen inside the cabin, but it was awfully close to the cockpit.
Wow.
A lot of close to, or it was very close to a lot of things, I think. You know,
Yeah,
not only the officer, but passengers, the cockpit.
right. Apparently there was some kind of conference of law enforcement, or sounds like a boondoggle to me, but they were in Ibiza heading back to Madrid, and there were several law enforcement officers in the cabin, and they must have had quite a stash of weapons up there in that cockpit, which is kind of strange to my mind that you would.
I don't know. I'm just trying to. I'm like picturing the captain like wearing like ammo belts, you know, as part of his uniform.
Like, just hand over all your
It's
weapons.
like bandana, you know.
He's like multiple handguns going in his
Yeah.
belt
So-
and stuff. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's funny though, because like Ibiza, like that's quite the party town for you guys and gals who haven't been. Well, I'm sure like our European crowd, they know about it, and probably a lot of you have been there. But a lot of people out here in the States, like Ibiza is not really a well-known party spot. I guess you're like stateside, and I can't imagine why you would need all that weaponry for a flight out of Ibiza.
No, I think it was like a law enforcement convention or something. There were like
They just
whole
carry their
article-
weapons with them all the time.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes.
You know, you never separate a law enforcement officer from his weapon, right?
They were probably going to a convention on gun safety.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
Probably.
Either that or on impenetrable suitcases.
Ooh.
Yes.
Wow. Oops. And now it's time for us to go. Shut up. Sorry. Did you hear that music, by the way?
No,
no.
I didn't hear it. No,
Music? What
totally
music?
heard it.
Yeah, good. Well, the people listening to the audio only don't hear it, because I'll definitely cut that one out. What I was trying to do was this. I don't remember why, though, now.
For the impenetrable suitcase company.
Oh, that was it. Thank you.
Yes.
Impenetrable. 10 points.
Excellent.
All right. Anything else to say about the misfired weapon?
I think we've
No.
covered it all
I think we have.
thoroughly.
Okay. Did we? I don't think we talked about. I think. Well, I don't know. I don't recall. We talked about the the Airlander 10. This new dirigible. I guess no. It's not. It's really a blimp. It's the world's largest or longest aircraft. Apparently, they're calling it the Flying Bum by some for its pert round back.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah. Well, if
If
you look
you've
at
seen
pictures of it,
pictures, yeah,
you can
you know
see
why.
why.
Okay.
It's officially named the Martha Ginn. Is that the way you pronounce that?
I'd say
Captain?
Gwen.
Well, but
Gwyn.
look at the order of the letters. It's GYWN. It's
That's
not
cool.
GWYN.
Well,
so
yeah, you're.
I don't know.
I was thinking maybe that's a famous person in the UK that Captain Nick would know about. No?
Not really.
Okay,
It
well,
looks like a Welsh name to me.
okay. Well, anyway, the 302-foot-long Airlander 10 just had its first flight like last week, and on its second test flight, the BBC reports that it was coming in for landing, returning to the Cardington airfield in Bedfordshire, when an eyewitness, did I say that right? Bedfordshire?
Yes.
Thank you. When an eyewitness said a line hanging from the plane hit the pole and caused the plane to slow-mo its way into a nosedive, inflicting damage to its cockpit. A rep for manufacturer Hybrid Air Vehicles refutes the pole claim, but says the company is assessing what happened and tells the Independent the crew is safe and no injuries have been reported. Again, just less than a week ago, it had its maiden voyage. So hopefully,
I like it how they point out that it's slow mode its way into
Yeah.
nosedive,
Yeah.
even
And
though
the
like
pictures being like,
everything is slow mo in that thing. So like it's slower mode its way.
But I mean, they crashed the cockpit, so I'm just wondering what on earth the guys in the front were doing, because
I
that's
don't
the
know.
bit that hit the ground, and it would have just been just awful if you were trying to fly the airplane and stop it from crashing, and meanwhile the cockpit's being squashed around you.
Yeah, I'm surprised there weren't any injuries, but apparently there weren't. But we'll put a link to this in the show notes, and you can see there's a YouTube video that's included in this article where you can actually see the thing slow-mowing its way into a nosedive, as they say.
I haven't seen the video, but just the final picture of it kind of looks like it all happened in slow motion. It just kind of looks like it was like, boink, you know?
Yeah.
It didn't.
Yeah, it's
really go
the
anywhere.
people like videotaping it with their phone camera or whatever is going, oh, that's not good. I think it's crashing. Anyway, all in slow motion.
Yeah, very slow motion.
Yeah. And then finally, I guess we have breaking news. This just happened today. Another incident of drunk flying, or an attempt to. A co-pilot about to fly out of Cherry Capital Airport was stopped for possibly being intoxicated. Police say he did a breath test and blew a .30.
Oh.
Now, Dr. Steph, is that a low number or a high number as far as a breathalyzer?
So for those in the United States who might be familiar that if you were driving and you were pulled over, you could be charged with driving while intoxicated for blowing a .08. So .08 versus .30. Yes,
That's
a
almost
high
4
number.
times the amount.
It is, exactly.
Traverse City Police arrested the co-pilot, who say was extremely drunk. Not a little bit, extremely drunk. And I'm thinking, Captain Nick and I were talking about this before we started the recording and thought, why be so hard on the guy? Maybe he has some anxiety about flying.
I know maybe he's afraid of heights, but he, like the entire time he said, "Seriously, guys, seriously, I'm okay. Seriously, I love you all."
Really?
Seriously.
Did he say that?
I'm just what
He's
I'm
a
thinking.
happy drunk.
He's a happy
Oh,
drunk.
okay. I'm okay, really,
I love
man.
the quote from the airline. And another example of Talon Air Safety procedures working effectively on behalf of our clients and for airport safety. Excuse me. That's a nice bit of spin.
Well, let's see. This is Talon Air. We are proud of Captain Manny Ramirez. Immediate action in detecting the co-pilot's condition as he ran into the airplane, apparently, and removing him from his position. This is yet another example of Talon Air's safety procedures working effectively. Did you just read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's yeah. I'm not gonna get political here, but that's a good spin.
Yeah, I like it.
Very
The
good.
individual has been terminated. Does that mean they shoot him?
It could mean that. Yeah, that would save us the money and time and hassle of trial.
We're a little more humane here. I think they just...
Well, then again, depends what state.
That's true.
That's true. Utah? Yeah.
Utah, yeah.
Texas?
Shoot people.
Shoot them.
No, I'm just kidding. Kidding, Texas. I'm kidding.
We love the
Where I
Texans.
lived in Utah.
Yeah, we love the
Are they called
Utahns as well.
Texicans?
Texicans?
No, Texans.
Texans.
Okay.
What do we call the people from Utah?
Utahns.
There we go. I thought there was going to be a joke in there somewhere.
I don't know.
All right. Time for the best part of the show.
Captain, incoming message.
Okay, let's start with some feedback from Steve Horn. He says, my brother-in-law just sent this to me, and I had to share it with the APG. Insane! And it's a YouTube link of William Rankin, the man who rode the Thunder. And it's a great video. It's a short one if you want to check it out. William Rankin was piloting a F-8 Crusader, and I think the engine failed. He had to eject from the airplane, and he ejected himself into a thunderstorm. And hence the name, The Man Who Rode the Thunder. Very interesting story. It's amazing that he lived through it. But anyway, so thought we'd put that in the show notes. You can enjoy watching this guy get almost pummeled to death.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was lucky to survive, wasn't he?
Yes.
And
I mean,
he was bouncing around in that thunderstorm for like 45 minutes or something. It was complete.
Yes.
And it came down with frostbite and hypoxia and all sorts of stuff. Dreadful.
I mean, he's lucky that the initial ejection didn't kill him, because he was up at pretty high altitude. I forgot how high, but
So that's a question I have, Captain Nick, for you. And obviously, you flew fast fighters with ejection seats, Martin Bakers, and all that stuff. So is there any kind of I mean, obviously, you guys go through training, but is any considerations that you have to think about when ejecting at high altitude versus low altitude, and different kinds of weather and things like that? Anything that
No, not really. If you eject at high altitude, you'll remain attached to your seat with just a stabilizing drogue, and the seat will plummet down fairly quickly. And you'll have an oxygen bottle on the seat that'll give you enough oxygen to keep you alive. And as the barometer on the seat goes through 10,000 feet, then it will start the man-seat separation activation. You don't even need to be conscious for any of that. You just sit there, and then 10,000 feet will automatically deploy your main chute, detach you from the seat, and you'll come down on your chute with your survival pack dangling on a bit of cord underneath you. And even if you're unconscious and you land in water, your life jacket will automatically inflate, and your emergency locator beacon will already be transmitting, and it will continue to do so. So it's all designed, if you can't stay conscious, to do it all for you.
Wow, nice.
So this guy was just having an exceptionally bad day.
He was.
Not only did he have to eject, it was into a thunderstorm.
yeah, I must say that the video was, they didn't actually have the video there when he went through all of this, and it's not 45 minutes long. It's only a couple of minutes long, but I didn't want to scare you there. But yeah, I think he was up in that thunderstorm for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, I imagine that the poor guy probably broke his mirror at home while getting ready, and then as he walked out, like a black cat walk,
He went under
a ladder,
yeah.
and then it was, it's probably,
Yeah, I wonder if he got his tie. Was that a Martin Baker seat?
I don't know about on the Corsair.
Yeah.
Most of them were, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. All right. Very interesting.
The Martin Baker tie isn't actually that impressive. It's just a blue tie with a very small red triangle outline on it. You need hard to recognize unless you know what it looks like. Much nicer, I think, were the World War II and a little after the Caterpillar Club, which was a little golden caterpillar with a ruby eye that you could pin onto your lapel if you jumped out using one of these guys' parachutes. So it was supposed to be a silkworm. And I always thought that was a gorgeous little thing, but then the Air Force moved to aeroconical parachutes, which weren't made of silk, and they obviously didn't keep up with anything nice to give to the guys.
You just can't have anything nice anymore.
No, you can't. No, it's such a shame.
Yeah. Moving on with Passenger Brian. He writes in, and let's see, this is Brian Sweeten. I have a question concerning a book that I'm reading that describes a takeoff in a fully loaded B-52 bomber during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The book is Big Buff, Tales of the B-52 Bombers, the SAC pilots who flew them, and the wives, and is written by Chuck and Marilyn Holmes. The passage reads, quote, Walter turned the airplane under the runway and pushed the 8 throttles full forward. As the airspeed reached 60 knots, he called on interphone S1, now. The navigator started his stopwatch on the word now. When his watch reached 18 seconds, the computed decision time, the navigator called on his interphone S2, now. Walter checked his airspeed indicator, and it was exactly as the performance charts predicted it would, 98 knots. Walter called over interphone, committed. The co-pilot placed his hand on the throttles and locked them in place. And then they shared a moment. No, there would be no aborted takeoff now. Memories. Would you please explain what S1 and S2 are, and is there anything you have to time during takeoff on airliners? My father was a navigator in B-52s during his Air Force career and passed some years ago from Huntington's disease. Many thanks to pilot Pip for raising money in the London Marathon for the Huntington's Disease Association. Thank you for all of you for your fantastic show. I've been a listener since episode 201. Of course, I had to go back and listen to the previous 200. Ooh, that sounds to me like he might have. Come on. Here we go. Try it one more time. APG syndrome. APG syndrome.
Sorry,
Timeout.
No care for that.
So Nick's saying that I'm cutting out a little bit. How am I doing for you guys in Miami?
No,
You're fine. You're fine here.
Okay, good.
It's
So
just you, Nick.
this time
No.
it's you, not us.
It was just your audio cut out. Everything else sounded fine.
Oh, okay.
Just a few seconds worth while you're reading that intro to that last piece.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't hear any. It was all fine.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you for giving me the heads up, though. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't going on and on and on when we didn't have a connection.
No.
All right. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, we were talking about the APG syndrome. And let me get back to my Evernote folder. Okay. So again, that was Passenger Brian, and we're sorry about the APG syndrome, to which there is no cure at this point.
Sadly, no. Yeah.
Sorry.
And actually, we're not that sorry.
No, it's a good thing actually.
Yeah.
Should be happy you have it.
I included in here the PDF, or he did actually, from raysaviation.mono.net, a PDF of the flight manual from the B-52. It says B-52 Driver Flight Manual, Part 3, Normal Procedures. And
I love it. That looks like you're. It's obviously a probably done by whoever came up with this document here, but that is usually what the front cover for the quick reference handbook on just about every Boeing I've ever flown looks like.
So it must be real.
Must be real. Must be real.
So I think S1 and S2 are probably what we refer to now. That probably stands for Speed 1, Speed 2, and we call them V1 and V2 at now, Velocity 1 and Velocity 2, which are certain critical speeds that we have to use for decision making when we're taking off. And I'm going to sit back and relax and listen to Captain Nick and Miami Rick talk about timing and performance on takeoff rolls, etc.
Off you go, Rick.
Okay, well, I'll start it off here. So yeah, so we've talked about this a couple of times in previous episodes about how as a technique of mine, the second I select takeoff thrust, I'll simultaneously start a stopwatch, and if all the figures have been worked out, correctly, which usually they are, but there's a chance that they might not have been. That's the reason why I do this cross-check. So when I select takeoff thrust, and by starting that stopwatch, by the time I hit 20 seconds, I should have 80 knots. And this is, as we've said in previous episodes again, if we are operating under what's called balanced field theory. And again, as a reminder, what balanced field theory means is that basically the field is balanced if the amount of runway required to abort the takeoff at V1, which is your go, no go speed, is the same as the amount of runway required to continue the takeoff at that V1 speed and overfly the departure end of that runway at 30 feet under dry runway conditions and 15 feet under wet runway conditions. So that's what's called balanced field runway theory. If you're operating with performance in your favor, so in this case, what that means is that you have you have a little bit more power than you should for the amount of weight that you have. So basically, your calculations are done conservatively, which is usually the way these figures work. You'll obviously get to 80 knots before 20 seconds. Now, you should start thinking about whether there's something wrong with your calculations if you get to 80 knots after 20 seconds. I'm not saying abort the takeoff if you don't get to 80 by 21 seconds, but do see what's going on. Maybe your power's not set correctly, and obviously it's a lot easier and it's a lot safer to abort a takeoff past 80 knots or past maybe 90 or even close to 100 knots than it would be to abort that very same takeoff very close to your V1, your go no go speed, which is usually going to be at max takeoff weight on the airplanes that I've flown. Anywhere between the 140s to sometimes as high as 160, 160 knots. So the lower the speed, obviously, the easier it's going to be to abort that takeoff. And so that's why I do that cross check there.
Nick?
Yeah, I'm not convinced they're V1, V2 or the equivalent because it seems to me that there's a timing check done there. So S2 might be the equivalent of the V1 speed we have now.
Yeah.
And I think Rick is exactly right. They calculated, obviously, an accurate timing mark to ensure, probably given the backup that all the instruments are working. I suspect they probably operated pretty heavy, and it might have been a pretty critical thing to ensure that they had enough power that they were actually going to get airborne safely. So my feeling is they probably calculated that and timed it between S1 and S2. For us, it's not a procedure in the Airbus to time. I have a rule of thumb, and that's all it is, that 100 knots in 30 seconds, which is similar to Rick's 20 seconds to 80 knots. But if you've got a stiff headwind, then that 100 knots is going to come well under 30 seconds. If you're departing with a tailwind, it might be just over 30 seconds. So it's only a rough gauge, not really something that I would seriously consider aborting for if I didn't crack it exactly. But it's kind of what I would term a gross error check.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and here in commercial airliner operations, we don't use S1 or S2 speeds. We have what's called, and Captain Jeff did kind of mention this. We have basically three speeds. We have what's called V1, which is, as I said, your go no go speed. So up until and basically the definition as per the FAA, V1 is the speed at which your first action to stop the aircraft must take place for you to be able to stop the aircraft within the available runway. Anything after V1, you're basically committed. You cannot abort the takeoff, because if you do, you will not have enough runway to stop the aircraft on the pavement there. So that's V1. VR is your rotation speed, which is the speed at which you begin to bring the nose of the aircraft up to the initial rotation attitude and to fly away from the runway. You do not want to rotate before or below VR, and the reason behind that, and that's very, very critical, is because it's not until VR that the wings are developing the required lift to get the aircraft off the ground. If you start to rotate before V1, then that increased angle of attack basically is going to keep you on the runway, because yes, you are increasing the angle of attack, which is, yes, going to increase your lift, but remember that by increasing lift, you're also increasing drag. Remember, we've talked about how when you double lift, you quadruple drag, and so if you don't have if you don't have the sufficient speed to fly away from the runway, which is not going to happen until you hit VR, then by rotating, you're actually the drag factor is higher than your lift factor, and then all that really is going to do is you're basically going to drag your tail along the runway until you do hit that rotation speed. And that's actually one of the tests that new airliners go through. That's called the VMU test. VMU starts for Velocity Minimum Unstick. So basically what they do is they're going to rotate the aircraft prior to VR and hold that attitude there, drag the tail of the aircraft along the runway. They're going to prep for this by placing protective, I think it's wood that they use on the backside of the aircraft there, and then they drag the tail of the aircraft along the runway until you get to that speed and the aircraft is able to fly away. So that's VR. The other speed that we talk about, and it's important, that's called V2, and it's your safety speed. And V2, basically what that means is once you get to V2, that's the minimum speed that you need to be at to be able to climb out and fly away safely on a single engine and be able to comply with your engine out to climb out requirements, which are different for 2-engine aircraft, 3-engine aircraft, and 4-engine aircraft. And then aircraft specific, I know that in the Boeing side of things, we have a call out at 80 knots, and the reason why we have a call out at 80 knots is because when we get to 80 knots, this all has to do with the way our auto throttle system works. Basically, the second that you, as I said, when you select take up, go around, the little switch in the throttles of a 777 or a 74, or up in the mode control panel if it's a 75 or a 76, the servos for the throttles are engaged up until 80 knots. And the reason why that's important is because if you do have to abort your takeoff prior to 80 knots, you have to remember to disconnect the auto throttles. Because if you bring the throttles back to idle before 80 knots, the servos are still engaged. The second that you let go of those throttles, the system's going to bring the throttles back up to where they were, the takeoff setting. When you get to 80 knots, the throttles are de-energized. The servos are de-energized. So the active mode of the auto throttle system goes from thrust mode, there's the crickets, from thrust mode to hold mode, which means that you can now bring the throttles back to idle and the throttles stay there. And that's an important call out, because 80 knots in the Boeing realm defines a low speed reject, obviously from 0 to 80, and a high speed reject from 80 to V1, and that's how it works at Boeing.
A little bit. I'm sorry. Are we still recording? No, that was good.
I think I was falling asleep, but I promise I was not falling asleep. Quite awake for that.
You must explain to me, Rick, at some point why Boeing designed the throttles to do that if you did a low speed abort. But don't worry about it. I'm just actually looking through that B-52.
Oh, you saw the takeoff data card, right?
Yeah, I found it here. And there's a little note saying initial timing speed. Initial timing speed is the speed of 70 knots indicated airspeed, at which timing is started to determine the acceleration characteristics of the aircraft. So it looks like the time taken to go from S1 to S2 is exactly that, an acceleration characteristic marker.
So usually, like what I've noticed, and well, not what I've noticed. Well, yeah, I guess what I've noticed. It's about 3 knots per second square, right? Like your normal acceleration at max weight under balanced field theory is about 3 knots per second square, like 3 knots per second. What your normal acceleration should be.
Hang on, I need to get my slide.
Yeah, get your abacus out.
Where is that?
I'm just trying to work out.
It.
I'm going to calculate that in the cockpit.
Yeah,
I'm doing a takeoff.
It's about 3 seconds. 3 seconds.
Got your slide rule out there.
3 meters per second square.
I use the TLAR method.
Do you?
All right.
That looks about right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that great question, Passenger Brian. And it was nice. It was good reading that B-52 driver flight manual. I know it's not the real thing, but I'm sure it's very similar to the real thing. And interesting discussion about acceleration checks, etc. So
And I'm sorry I wasn't very thorough.
yeah, I wish maybe next time you can continue on and get into a little bit more depth into that.
I will.
Don't encourage him.
Hey, Liz, who happens to be in our chat room. By the way, did I mention that we record this show live sometime during the week or weekend on YouTube? And you can join the great APGers in the chat room. So again, APG crew on Twitter, and download those free Airline Pilot Guy apps and get the push notifications and such, and join the party. So another plug for our live recording party. Liz sent this in. She says, "You need this license plate, Jeff. It's a Texas plate, and it says V1ROT8, which of course means V1 rotate. I like it."
Excellent.
Didn't we just talk about that? I think
We
so.
did. Isn't that nice the way that I planned that?
That was, and I can tell you've been planning that for weeks.
Yeah,
So-
I didn't actually plan that at all. That just happened to be the chronological order of the feedback. It just worked out,
Very nice.
just like most of my life. It just kind of works out. Not always, but mostly. Anyway, so she also sent in a piece she sends us a lot of feedback, and this is another link that she sent from the economist.com, and she said you need to queue up the drone sound clip. So here we go. Personal robotic aircraft are hovering over the horizon. This is from The Economist. I already mentioned that. Flying a helicopter is tricky, especially when hovering. You use your left hand to raise and lower the collective pitch lever to climb or descend. Your right hand to move the cyclic pitch, the joystick, to go forwards, backwards, sideways. And both feet to work the anti-torque pedals to point the nose. At first it all seems like an impossible dance, but with plenty of practice and careful coordination, it can be mastered. Flying a drone, by comparison, is easy peasy. I did not make that up. That's what it says in this article. Some can be operated with little or no experience using only a smartphone app, so it was a matter of time before resourceful folk started to think about building simple-to-operate drones that are large enough for people to fly in. One passenger drone undergoing flight test is the Volocopter VC200. With 18 separate rotors, it might seem to be an ungainly contraption, but its makers, eVolo, a company based in Karlsruhe, Germany, claim it is more stable than a conventional helicopter. There are some other companies also out there that have their versions of basically the drones that we're used to seeing, but with a lot more rotors and a lot bigger, and a place for a human or two to sit. And
Jeff, what happens if you drop your smartphone out of the cockpit when you're
you're out of luck.
What?
Hey,
Whoa.
could you pick that up and push the button that says land?
No, don't stop making me go around in circles. No, I don't want to do a loop.
That is, yeah. It's I have a question for those of you guys and gals in the chat room. What is the rotational ratio between the main rotor and the tail rotor on most helicopters? I'll let that one simmer.
That's a great question, Rick.
Glad you asked it.
Yes.
Yes, we are very happy that you asked that. In the meantime, everybody's going to be Googling rotational velocity between the... but you don't need to worry about that, Rick, with a drone.
You know, my question here is: do like a set of rotors go one way, another set of rotors go another way to kind of counteract for torque, or
I don't know.
It doesn't look like it.
no?
I don't
We've
know.
tried
Maybe
that
they
with
do.
you, Rick, but it doesn't counteract
Yeah,
your
that's why I'm asking from personal experience. Did not work for me.
It's funny to see some of the early on YouTube. You can see some of the early tests or whatever of people trying to, I could just see their brains. They're looking at these little quadcopters, going, if I had enough of these, maybe I could fly. And there's a dude that has these some kind of contraption, and he had to build like a protective screen because the way he placed the seat was like in the same plane as these all these rotors, and it was like I don't know how many of them, but multiple rotors. And if one of them kind of let go, it would like chop your head off or something. So you had to have some kind of. So in this one pictured here, I think this is the Volocopter. The actual place, it kind of looks like a little miniature helicopter thing with little skids, etc., in the control seat. But it looks like all of the little rotors going around are on a plane above the control cockpit.
I wonder if this is the same guy that did the lawn chair with all the balloons.
It might be.
Yep.
Is he out of jail?
Yep.
I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, and I think I also read another article. I didn't put it in here, but I think I read that Uber is looking at some kind of a flying car system, drones, like personal drones, to be used in the future to cart people around or fly people around.
I had no idea that was even a wow.
Yeah, but I guess the big thing that they're going to have to work through is the fact that, as we know, with the smaller drones, they don't fly for very long because the battery technology hasn't developed to the point where it can supply enough power for a long flight. So I would imagine that before we really see this in use transporting humans, that they're going to have to come up with some kind of a major breakthrough with battery technology, and because those things are heavy, very, very heavy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a penalty for even for airliners, obviously. But you don't want to top the tanks off if you don't need to. Carrying all the extra weight around. I can't imagine a drone being commercially viable if you need to worry about the weight of the battery, and then on top of that, the weight of whatever it is you're carrying around. Yeah, I don't. Well, it's going to be a while before that's even a possibility, I think.
Yeah,
but
they're working on it.
They're working on it, absolutely.
Anyway, so before you know it, we're going to be. This is what all you're going to hear. Going down the street. Hey, Joe!
All those Ghostbusters.
Where are you going? Going to the store? Yeah, watch out for my toe. Chris writes, avoiding turbulence may soon be easier for pilots. What are your thoughts on this? This is from money.cnn.com. And this, of course, is Chris Cheatwood, the guru in northern Alabama. He says, or this article says, fun fact, airline pilots don't get automated air turbulence reports.
What?
What? That's a fun fact.
I do. I just listen out for the deltas. Always asking for turbulence reports.
It's not automated. And why? Yeah, those Delta pilots. What's wrong with those guys?
Might as well be.
I fly for Acme, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. I don't fly for Delta.
Yeah.
It's a very similar company, though. And those Delta guys. But, I don't know how Delta got their bad rap for that. It used to be American was the one that everybody picked on for asking about how the rides are, but somehow now it's kind of worked its way over to Delta. But,
It's a contagious
problem. We can't. I mean, they can't help it if they're concerned about their passenger comfort.
Right.
Their passengers.
Right.
All right.
I
Well,
just like the sound of their own voices.
Well, this
That
might
is
be
true,
helpful
actually.
for them, then, maybe.
I don't know what you're saying, Captain Nick. A new partnership between IBM's weather company and GoGo, and we're not talking about the dancers, we're talking about the internet Wi-Fi company. Looks to change that. Oh no, sorry. Change that situation to help improve airline safety. Pilots flying around equipped with GoGo in-flight technology. Acme has GoGo in-flight. Will now get air turbulence reports or alerts in real time. The two companies announced Thursday. The weather company will put its turbulence detection algorithm into GoGo's aircraft-based communication servers. That software will get access to data from planes in the air, and GoGo will process that data, send reports back and forth between air and ground officials using its communications network. Think of it like Google Maps using crowdsourced data from lots of mobile phones to compile traffic information.
Really more like Waze then, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Waze for the airwaves.
Turbulence.
But to be fair, we as airline pilots in the dispatch, we get the weather package, and part of the weather package is these charts called the prognostic charts, the prog charts, and on those prog charts you have the different kinds of weather systems and things to anticipate, and then one of them is the winds, and basically you have a graph. It kind of looks like. It kind of looks like a big blob on the map there, and basically all that is that it's a line that connects points of equal wind velocity, and those are called isotachs.
Or isogonic line.
Well, no, these are isotachs because isobars is lines of equal pressure, so isotachs lines of equal wind velocity, and the closer these isotachs are bunched together, means that the gradient of wind change within a certain distance is higher. So you know that if you're flying through that particular area, you can anticipate some turbulence there. Also, I mean, we do have what's called CAT, not the furry cute kind, but CAT stands for clear turbulence, which is kind of what sometimes surprises us in the middle of a flight. And the reason why not we because I fly boxes around, but why passenger pilots need to switch the seatbelt sign on. And the reason why we tell you guys and gals in the back to make sure that when you're sitting down, you have your seatbelt on, because we can't really tell when clear air turbulence is going to hit. But we do have a certain, a somewhat of an idea of where some of that turbulence is. And now when we do hit turbulence, there's a couple of things that we do. Well, the first one is, tell you to sit down. We'll turn the seatbelt light on. And then we'll do two more things. The first one is we'll start slowing the aircraft down to what's called turbulence penetration speed, VA.
Remain seated with your seatbelt securely fastened anytime the seatbelt light is on.
That's the one. So we'll start slowing the airplane down to turbulence penetration speed, which is usually slower than our cruise speed. On the 7.4, our normal Mach cruise speeds, anywhere between Mach 0.84 to Mach 0.8788. So we'll start slowing the airplane down to about 0.83 Mach. And if it's really, really bad, then we'll turn what's called continuous ignition on. And then all that really does is that it turns the spark plugs in the engines on to make sure that the engines do not flame out. Because we've talked about this in other episodes, how a jet engine does not need a constant spark to keep that combustion going. But if the flow through the engine is going to be disturbed because of some turbulence, then we do want to turn that ignition on to make sure that that flow of air and that combustion stays going and we don't get any flame out. So we'll do those two things.
Very good.
You mean, don't your engines automatically put the igniters on if it detects a flame out, Rick?
No. They will.
Okay, I guess you're flying a Boeing then.
Now, my MD-90 does that.
Well,
McDonnell Douglas, well done, Jeff.
that is Boeing, right, Nick?
Only thieves.
There's two instances when just one. No, actually two. There's two instances when continuous ignition goes on automatically. The first one is when you turn engine and eyes on, and then the second one is when you bring the flaps out of the up position. In the airplanes that I've flown, even in the 777 included, that's when continuous ignition goes on automatically. Otherwise, you need to turn it on yourself and then turn it off when you don't need it anymore. So.
Fair enough. I must admit, we get those old kind of old-fashioned paper turbulence maps as well, Rick. But the new electronic charts we have got much more accurate predictions of turbulence.
Oh, yeah.
And from what I've seen of them so far, they're actually pretty damn good. So. They're a great way to keep up. This technology is real time, but the predictions are pretty good, and they're only usually a few hours old when you get on board. So we've already got pretty sophisticated stuff, and of course all the Delta boys bleating, so we can usually spot it all.
Those poor guys.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
unfair. They're not here to defend themselves.
No, I know.
Yeah,
No,
they have,
it's
they
so
have,
sad.
no
isn't
one
it?
to represent them here, so.
Very sad.
Let's continue to make fun of. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's not. Let's see. I think it might be time for our friend Miami Hick. I just can't figure out where his feedback is. It's here somewhere, though. I know it. Here it is.
This is Miami Hick. Finally got my Airbus engine fixed. I had to order a new one from France. It's funny, the box came in though, and it said Fragile on the side. That sounds like Italian. I thought this thing came from France, but either way, I got my new Airbus engine on there, and I was talking to a guy down in the hangar, FAA inspector. He was going to sign off on all the work. We got to talking about that new CPDLC thing y'all was talking about on the podcast last week instead of talking over the radio and do the text message thing. He said it was a good idea. I said I don't think it's going to be a good idea. So we decided to test it out. I had to break in a new engine anyway. So I'm on final approach now. I got the FAA guy right here beside me. We're going to test out the new text message thing. See if it works out better than the radio. And I got me a new Airbus computer. This one's a lot nicer to me than the last one was. So got that installed while I was getting the new engine hooked up. I'm on final approach now and just waiting for the first text message to come in. I got my computer set. It's going to tell me what the text message says every time one comes in so I can share it with you all. Waiting on the first one to come in now.
You are clear to land. Hang on while I find a runway. LOL smiley face.
All right, I don't know why that LOL smiley face. That's a little odd. Anyway, so the first one went off without a hitch. He's trying to find me a runway here.
Hey honey, can you pick up some milk and bread on the way home today?
Milk and bread? Why is air traffic control asking me to pick up milk and bread for?
Sorry, wrong person. LOL winky face.
Well, we all accidentally send text messages to the wrong person every now and then, so no big deal, I guess. Let's see what the next one says here.
You are clear to land on runway 6 rice.
6? Did he say 6 rice? I don't understand that. 6 rice.
Oops, sorry. Stupid autocorrect. I meant 6 right.
Oh, okay, there we go. Runway 6 right. See, there's nothing to worry about with the text message. Everything looks to be working just fine. I don't see any problems, right? The FAA guy, yeah, he's shaking his head. I don't think this is going to work well at all. So hopefully we can share this with everybody and put the stops on, put the brakes on this thing before it goes any further. This is a terrible mess. I'm gonna get on down on the ground here and hopefully talk to somebody over the radio like we're supposed to do. So till I see you again, Miami Hick, over and out.
Very, very funny, as always.
So many truths there.
It's funny thing is that's actually, I mean, I can't, if I had $1 for every time I get a winky fit from ATC, I'd be a rich man.
I'm sure you do. And a lot of winkies, right?
To be fair, you can get quite a lot of lag in these messages, and it's quite feasible to get a bit confused when air traffic asks you to do something, and you try and ask a question back, and you end up in a bit of a question and answer session that gets out of phase. Then it becomes really difficult because you don't know what question he's answering when you get a message back. There is quite a bit of potential here when you're using it like a chat facility. When you're using it for basic clearances, it's good. But we've had a few transatlantic clearances that have been very confused when guys have had a clearance and then a reclearance, and the reclearance message takes perhaps some time to come through, and in the meantime they've asked for a clarification or a climb, and you get out of phase. And it's something that's great in a strategic sense, but not very good in a quick time environment.
Yeah, they just send back an answer that says yes. And you go,
Well, that happens. Yeah.
Yes to what? Do you want us to climb or not? Yes.
Yes.
Huh? It's very easy, and it's okay if you're using a standard phraseology that the machine will spit out for you. But if you're pre-texting, then it's just as easy as it is when you're texting someone on your phone to get a confusion.
That's true. And then, well, I mean, and to be fair, and to complement what Captain Nick was saying here, if there's any doubt as to what the content of the message is, we can always go back to voice communications being 10 times out of 10. The initial procedure for establishing contact with an HC facility through CPDLC involves what's called a cell call check. So you're going to get a frequency, an HF frequency if you're out over the Atlantic or the Pacific, and you're going to contact the ATC facility through this frequency, and then they're going to send you a ping, which you'll receive in the flight deck, and a bell will go off, just testing that link between you and the ATC facility in case they need to get a hold of you. And then if you need to get a hold of them, then all you really do is just call on your agreed frequency and give them a call and then find out what's going on there. So it's not like you're going to be climbing or descending or turning when you're not supposed to. If there's any doubt at all as to what your clearance is, always make sure that you get clarification first before proceeding, and keeping yourself out of trouble, and most importantly, keeping the operation safe.
Don't bother. Just assume.
Yeah.
You're usually okay.
That's fine.
Hey, Bob Lufkin sent this in. He's linked to a YouTube video. He says, "Hi guys, welcome back to the USA." Thank you. I guess with an A320, even a child can land it with a few hints. I bet it takes a real pilot to land a Boeing. Sorry.
Apparently not.
Question: if the autopilot and autothrust and autopilot land engage, why would not the throttles retard themselves? Is there auto braking? I would think the plane should be able to land, stop, shut down without human intervention. Or have we not reached that point yet? Well, no, that's why they still need us on the airplane. But anyway, he's referring to this YouTube video. It's entitled "Inexperienced Girl Trying to Land an A320." I'll play just a little bit of it.
Hi. Today we're going to simulate pilot incapacitation.
Oh, come
Let's
on.
assume two pilots are incapacitated. And this...
Okay, I'm going to start. So I can edit out my... Oh, come on.
Hi. Today...
I love the internet.
Hi. Today we're going to simulate pilot incapacitation. Let's assume two pilots are incapacitated, and this young lady will try to fly and land this plane. The airplane is in flight. We'll try to do the ILS approach. Simple ILS approach. Are you ready? Good. Let's go. B320, turn right heading 070. Check auto thrust is engaged. On the front panel, check auto thrust and engage it. Auto thrust.
No, not that one. The other one. And it goes for like several minutes with that stupid bell going off.
Well, that's gonna go off. That's gonna go off until you insert another quarter. It is an Airbus, so.
So I'm looking at this thinking, I'm not really sure what the point of this is, because the guy sitting in the right seat is basically telling her everything to do. Okay, no, okay, go up, look over here. Okay, do this one. By the way, turn off that bell, please. Push that red light.
It's not like they just sat back and they were like, here you go, have fun.
Which is really funny because you can't cancel that warning.
Oh.
And he's telling her to push the master caution to turn it off, and that's a VMO.
Yeah, because I saw her. She was pushing it several times, and it was still going off.
That's an overspeed warning, and that won't cancel. You're just going to slow the airplane down. So,
I think finally he realizes you need to pull the throttles back or turn the speed back. I don't know.
Well, I mean, to be fair, in Boeing's, if the throttles do go back to idle at 25 feet, so if you are coupled to the
all Boeings.
Well, not all Boeings, but the ones that I've flown, 75, 76, 777, 74s. So even the 73s do as well. The NGs, I'm sure the 300s and 400s as well. The throttles do go back to idle at a certain radio altitude, and provided you have the auto brake system set to a value that's going to get you stopped within the available runway. You could get the aircraft landed just basically hands off, and that's basically what an auto land is for us. Even though we do have our hands on the controls on Boeing's, that is the case. And now the way you would disconnect the auto throttle is by selecting reverse thrust. So the second that the throttles go back to idle through the auto throttle system, and then the second you select reverse thrust, bringing the 2 little levers or 4 little levers in front of the throttles, you bring those to the interlock position. That disconnects the auto throttle, and then now you select reverse thrust and get the aircraft stopped. So in Boeing's, you can do it.
Very interesting.
And Dave W., won't the flight protection retard throttles on an overspeed? No, but the airplane will pitch itself upwards and slow itself down that way. And there are a couple of questions in there. The Airbus the engines will retard themselves to idle in the flare, but the throttles don't move. That's the only difference between Boeing and Airbus in that point.
Okay. Oh, wow.
On the 727, which is a Boeing, the throttles never move by themselves ever.
Yeah, you had a guy named Jim that sat between the captain and the FO.
At least not at Acme Airlines. We didn't have auto throttles on that airplane. I forgot who sent this in to me. I don't think it's in the list of feedback. But somebody did send this in, and as soon as I can figure out who it was, I'll give you credit for it. But they pointed me to another YouTube video, and it's called Flight Simulator Pilot Comedy. Let's listen to a little bit of it. You should watch the whole thing. We'll have a link in the show notes. It's pretty funny.
Ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial aircraft? Well, we're here right now at a flight simulator where real pilots come to practice their skills. Let's go inside and see how they do it. Hi, Captain. How are you going? Sorry? I said, how are you going, Captain? I can't hear you. Oh, hello. How are you, Marion?
You really have to watch the video.
Hi, kids. Now, Captain, how long does it take to learn to be a pilot?
Well, a good pilot, it takes about sort of 10, 15 years of training, and you're just getting out there and doing whatever you can. A crap pilot take about 5-10 minutes, probably.
So what's involved in becoming a pilot?
A lot of this.
She's just flipping switches.
I always wanted to know, what do those stripes on your shoulder stand for?
So they stand for the amount of passengers that you've lost. This is landing. Jeffrey, Michelle, this is taking off.
Most improved, under 14s.
Now there's so many gadgets and buttons and levers. What do they all stand for?
This one's to get the air hostesses from the back.
What does this little gadget down here do?
It gets Foxtel.
That's the internet.
We take off, and then I'll just chuck on the Gilmore Girls and just watch that for a while.
Sometimes you log on, check your emails, Google something. What's the...
Anyway, it's very very cute. Obviously from it says Kiwi Ghost, so I would imagine it's a New Zealand production or Australian. I'm not sure which.
I don't know. That might have been New Zealand.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Because Kiwi usually refers to New Zealand, right, Captain Nick?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, it's very, very funny, very clever. These are all comedians. They're wearing pilot uniforms, but they're not pilots. They're just answering these interview questions in the simulator, and I was laughing out loud. LOL. On the floor. Whatever. ROLOF.
I'll have to go watch it.
ROTFL?
Yeah.
That's it. Something like that.
floor laughing.
All right. And again, when I figure out who it was that sent me a link to that, I'll definitely give you credit for that. So thank you. Jeff Harrison sent in some feedback regarding the Afghanistan 747 crash, National Air Cargo. Did we already talk about this one?
I don't remember.
Well, we did after it happened, of course. But,
yeah, a while. I mean, it's been.
It's been a while.
Sounds familiar, but...
It was. I think this is the final report from the NTSB, and basically it goes into a lot of details about it. I thought, now that I'm thinking about it, you may not have been here, Rick, but I think we did talk about we were talking about the fact that I don't know, maybe I just was having a conversation with, never mind, it wasn't on the show, it was in the cockpit. I was having a conversation with a co-pilot who flew for a cargo outfit and had a good friend who flew for this company, and or maybe no, they flew for I think it was Coletta. It was Coletta doing this kind of hauling, Rick, before National took it over.
Yeah, it's well, they're all ACMI type operators. So yeah, I'm not 100% on who had this contract before National did, but it sounds about right.
I think this was the very first time that National was tasked with doing this job of the military vehicles. There were 5 of them. 3 of them were like super heavy, or 2 of them, and then 3 of them. Well, they're all heavy, but they were had to be strapped down to pallets on the floor, and apparently they didn't use as many straps as the previous company did when they were securing these things. And anyway, it goes into a lot of detail about the accident and what happened there. And essentially, they can't define it definitively as far as how many of the vehicles broke from their tie downs, but at least one of them did, and perhaps more. And they can show the marks of the spare tire in the back going through the aft pressure bulkhead and basically just taking out the entire hydraulic system of the airplane. And they had no control at all of their elevator or rudder in the back of the airplane. And at that point, they were basically along for the ride. And in fact, it kind of lays out some diagrams of along the edge of the runway. At a certain point, there were like pieces of these vehicles off to the side of the runway. So there were actually pieces of the vehicle coming out of the airplane before the thing started doing its extreme nose up attitude and subsequent stall and crash. So it was a pretty ugly thing. But
yeah, there's a thing with this particular accident that this Dash 400 was what's called a BCF. It's a Boeing converted freighter, and BCFs are aircraft, as the name implies, that were not did not come off the assembly line as freighters, but were they started their life as passenger aircraft, and as the airlines, I guess, moved on to twin engine airplanes, or just basically did not need that 400 anymore. It went on to live on as a freighter, and so there's an entire process where the structure of the aircraft is strengthened. There's obviously some structural work done to the floor. All sorts of things installed to be able to tie things down to the main cargo deck. And so apparently there was an issue with some of that conversion work. I read a little bit of the report. I haven't actually gone to the bottom of it yet, but so
right.
far. It's been an interesting read.
It's pretty interesting. They have like transcripts of some of the conversations that the crew was having, because this was the second flight of the day for that load, initially from another location to Bagram Air Base, where they refueled, and then they noted that there was some movement of one or more of the vehicles in the back, and you could just tell in the transcript some of the concern that some of the pilots had about it, and they continued on anyway. And obviously we know the end of that story, but a lot of lessons learned in this one. So if you're interested in reading that kind of thing, accident reports from the NTSB, just check out the show notes and you'll see it there.
And we definitely talked about this a while back when it happened, but yeah, so it's good to have the final report there.
I can't. I've only seen the video once, and I can't bring myself to seeing it again. It's just too.
Yeah,
it's just horrible.
It's hard to look at that video. Rick.
Yes, sir.
Writes. No, a different Rick. Rick Gurley. I'm an instrument-rated pilot, a private pilot living in Houston, Texas. He's one of those Texicans. I love your show.
Main Man Micah tells me that's what they call themselves. I'll have
really?
you know.
I've never heard anybody refer to themselves as a Texican. But...
Well, I don't know. Perhaps you'd ask one.
Micah, is that right? I don't know. I love your show. Have been listening since around episode 50-something. I'm currently behind by about 8 episodes, so this feedback is a bit delayed in being submitted. And factoring in the prevailing APG headwinds, submission date to reading on air. What is he talking about? We get to your feedback immediately, within 2 or 3 months or so from the time that you send it. Anyway, he says, so I'm finishing up my training, should be taking my commercial multi-engine check ride by mid-August. And so he's probably already done it, so hopefully that worked out well, Rick. So with that in mind, I feel I should share the truth with the APG community prior to taking the FAA commercial pilot oath and being sworn to secrecy. Ooh. In episode 223, you talked about a Germanwings flight where the cabin crew was incapacitated due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Wasn't this simply a leak in the CTDS? For those of you who don't know, the CTDS is the chemtrail distribution system, which has been employed on many jets over the years to assist governments in controlling their people. This seems like the most logical explanation to me. Maybe one of the APG crew can explain the CTDS holding tank pre-flight inspection that should occur to keep the airline employees safe.
I can't. I can't talk about that.
I can confirm or
I can
deny.
neither confirm nor deny.
I guess I'll have to edit this out, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, way to go, Rick.
I can tell you the tank is camo print, though. No,
is it? Is that why we never see it?
I mean, it's got to be well hidden. You know?
Yes, it must be. Also, Captain Nick, I've heard rumors that Airbus has a secret third button, which is the CTDS release button. Is this true, or do the computers have the needed logic to handle this automatically so you can focus on pushing the landing button at the appropriate time?
The Airbus? He thinks there's only one of them?
That should be only one, but there tragically are many, many more.
Yeah, one's too many.
Okay, well, at least the throttles don't open themselves and rejected takeoff.
Hey, Rick Gorley, we hope that you passed your commercial check ride, commercial multi-engine check ride, and please don't mention the CTDS system anymore because you know it's secret.
Yeah.
All right.
By
Sean
the way,
Taylor.
That secret third button is actually to eject the passenger from the captain's toilet when he needs to use it.
Does that eject down, out, sideways, or up? I guess it depends on the airplane.
Probably down.
I don't care.
As long as he's out of there, or she's out of there.
It's an Airbus, so into the cabin.
Okay. Sean Taylor sent in some photos that he took of the gang, the APG crew and APG community members that were present at Farnborough on Sunday morning when we were watching the 727 display. He said, which I guess is why Jeff is so transfixed. There's one shot of me standing there transfixed, apparently. Nelson's there with his camera, his phone camera, taking a nice picture, and got a bunch of the regulars there on that deck of the media center as we were watching some of the flight displays. So we'll put those pictures in the show notes if you want to check them out. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, sharing those. Justin writes, "Greetings to all. I've been listening regularly for about a year now, but this is my first time sending in feedback. I recently reread the book Fate is the Hunter by Ernest K. Gann and took special interest in the beginning of the author's airline experience, as I am very near my commercial multi-engine check ride, and that was Rick that was taking his commercial multi-engine check ride. Wow. And I hope to reverse the monetary flow for flying in the near future. Returning to the question, have any of you ever experienced a time during your career when you felt as if someone had made a mistake and not realized just who it was they were placing trust in to fly the airplane? Like Gann, I understand that I meet the standards, but I still have a hard time believing that someone would actually pay me to fly. I wonder that every time myself.
Yep.
I'm curious as to whether other pilots, such as yourselves, and those in the community have also found it hard to believe that you're in a position, the position you are, entrusted with millions of dollars worth of equipment and the lives of those on board. On another note, okay, well, let's tackle that one first. I'm from the first time I had that kind of thought was when I was flying C-141s for the Air Force, and we were doing these special missions carrying top secret cargo and very, very expensive cargo. And I'm looking over at the aircraft commander, and he's like 26 years old, first lieutenant, and I'm a 24-year-old second lieutenant. We're going, can you believe that they're letting us fly this thing? And I guess to take it even a step further, I think Captain Nick would agree that he's out there as a young person in his 20s flying these fighters that sometimes have nuclear weapons hanging from the wing stations, right?
Well, not me personally, but
yeah. But I mean, they're out there, right? I mean,
oh, most certainly.
It's quite an amazing thing in the military that so much trust is put in such young people, and I guess that's why it's so important that they pick really good people to these positions, to do this kind of role.
Just a small sort of aside. The Air Force, the Royal Air Force, had a two-man principle with all nuclear weapons. So you weren't ever supposed to have a situation where one man alone was responsible for delivering a nuke. Until the Jaguar came along, and then they went, well, hang on a minute, we're going to deploy these airplanes with nukes in Germany, and it has only got one pilot. So when they held QRA with nuclear-armed aircraft in Germany, the pilots used to have a corporal policeman, an armed corporal policeman with them, and the idea was that this guy used to run around behind the pilots, and if one of them went to the aircraft when he wasn't supposed to, or tried to get airborne when he wasn't allowed to, the corporal policeman was supposed to shoot him.
Wow.
Okay.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah, pretty serious. And and when I say corporal policemen, they were acting corporals, so we're not talking top of the tree here.
Well, to go back to Justin's question for a minute, I think anyone who's suddenly been, or even if you're expecting to be placed in a position of leadership or command, the first time you're actually in that role and expected to carry out the duties of that role, whether it's, your first time soloing an aircraft where all of a sudden you're the only person there to make the decisions, all the way up to, higher positions of command, I think it's natural to have that sense of, oh my goodness, am I, really the right person to be here? Do I have the right skills, the right knowledge to handle all of these tasks? And usually the answer is yes. If you're in that position, it's because you've reached that point where you can handle it, you have all the tools available to do that, and it's natural not to trust in yourself, but you have to be able to do that and know that you have all of that and be confident to go forward. So I'll just say that much.
No, I'll tell you how I feel about it. It's and I agree with what Steffi said here and what Captain Jeff and Captain Nick said as well. But the way I always looked at it was, and I remember when I used to fly passengers and both positions there. I remember I would walk through the terminal and look at all walk through the boarding area of my flight and look at all the passengers and think about all the families and all the lives and and just things that are going on around me, and then I'd walk down the jetway, and then the second I'd walk into the airplane and then I would make that left turn into the flight deck, just sit in my seat, and I would just kind of just forget all about that stuff. Like for me, it was just the airplane and my crew, and just the flight, just carry out the flight, carry out the mission, and that's kind of how I looked at it. I never thought about the fact that I had 200 or 300 plus people back there. I always thought about the fact that as long as I operate the aircraft safely, and as long as I get myself from point A to point B safely, then by default everyone else is going to do so as well. And to kind of go add a little bit to what Captain Jeff talked about here a second ago, it's true. I mean, it's you look at what happens when there's even an incident, like an airplane clipping another airplane's wing or something, very minor, or an airplane maybe taking a turn and having one of the main landing gears go into the grass. That makes world news. So that does put a little bit of pressure on the fact on you, knowing that if you do make a mistake, then everyone, the entire world, and I mean literally the entire world's going to know about it. But you shouldn't let that bother you. I mean, if you're sure in your abilities, and if you've been placed in a position of command by those entrusting you with this aircraft, and if you're there, it's because you can certainly handle it. So I just don't think too much about it. I don't think about it at all, actually.
Yeah, you could drive yourself nuts if you did, if you dwell on it. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. That was a good discussion. On another note, I have a question which Nick may know the answer to. I don't know why he would know the answer to this, but let's ask it. What was the last date on which not a single airplane flew anywhere in the world? We frequently see and hear statistics on how frequently aircraft fly these days, but I wonder how recently there were no aircraft in the sky.
Well, that's a bit of an impossible question, quite honestly. And I suppose perhaps Wilbur and his brother took a day off after their first flight. That might have been
exactly.
it. So after that point, there were aircraft flying, and no one has kept an overall record of every flight of every aircraft. So it would be absolutely impossible to work out that there wasn't somebody somewhere airborne at some point during every day since the Wright brothers did their thing. So I'd say that's kind of, even if you came up with the date, so well, it was this date, in
probably in 1917?
Yeah.
Or December, 1903.
December 18th, 1903. Yeah.
Oh,
and there'll be some bloke in New Zealand going, no, I might have flown on that day. I can't remember now. It was a long time ago.
So a lot of people in the chat room.
I'm going to say, September 23rd, 1908.
Is that the day?
No one flew that day.
Really? Okay.
The day off. And
so,
I'm right.
Dr. Steph was obviously the person to ask this question.
There you go.
There you go.
There's a Wikipedia article on that, I think.
There is.
And a lot of people in the chat room are saying September 11th, 2001. Well, maybe in the United States, but in Canada and Mexico and everywhere else in the world.
Me for a start. I got airborne. I watched those aircraft crash into the trade centers, and I then promptly got airborne and flew to Hong Kong. So, yeah, I was airborne.
Yeah, that was just a U.S. thing that there were no airplanes, which was really kind of eerie when you looked up and there was nothing flying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was you wouldn't think that you'd notice that, but I thought it was kind of obvious. It was like maybe it's just it happens so regularly that you somehow sense that there are airplanes flying above you and making noise, but you just kind of tune it out. But when they're not actually up there flying overhead, it's like eerie silence.
Yeah, it's just become part of the usual background noise at this point in our lives.
Yeah, that was odd. But yeah, that's the best we can do with that question, Justin Graham. So thanks for the questions, and good luck with the commercial certificate.
Certainly.
First Officer Jeff sent some audio feedback.
Hey, Captain Jeff, and Miami Rick. Was great hearing Rick back on the podcast for 231.5. Looking for a 737 driver? You got one. Talking about the Air Meroc and the double takeoff, double landing, early rotation. You were talking about the flap setting, Jeff, when you were looking at it, and how you could see that the slats were out, but hardly any flaps. The 7.3 will not do a slat-only takeoff. It's not a setting for that. In flaps 1, we have all the leading edge slats down in the takeoff position and barely any flaps. If you look at it, it's hard to see that the flaps are even out. So that could be one of the situations that you're looking at there. He would have a big yellow light looking at him if the trailing edge flaps were not out and just the slats. Rick talks about perhaps they put the zero fuel weight in wrong. In my experience on the FMC on the 7.3, more likely they put the wrong flap setting in. If they're not automatically downloading their takeoff data from the company like we do at American, you can actually, it's very simple to do. We almost always do flaps 1. Occasionally we do flaps 5, and then once in a blue moon we do flaps 15. If you put flaps 1 in there and it's really a flaps 5 takeoff, it's totally different data, and that could be part of the problem. I don't think that was probably it, though, because if they're on a really long runway, they're probably doing flaps 1. Flaps 5 is normally for shorter runways, higher temperatures. So I'm not sure what these guys did. I haven't looked at the video, but so that's what's going on there. One of the things that Rick said that kind of got my attention was the AOA is different, the angle of attack is different. Actually, it's not. It doesn't matter what your flap setting is, it's always the same angle of attack, but the pitch angle will look different because how the flap is, not how the flap, how the wing is oriented into the relative wind. So, for example, I know on the F-15 we flew only angle of attack. It didn't matter if you had the flaps out or the flaps up, it was always 20 to 22 units. And in the 737, we do have a flap indicator, and it's always right around 4.5 to 5 units. It doesn't matter if you're doing a 15, a 30, or a 40 flap landing. But the drag thing is a big deal. So, and Jeff, for you guys, the 7.3, we normally do 30 flap landings. It's the opposite on the 7.3 as it is on the Mad Dog. Flap 40 landings in the 7.3 are really, really sloppy. The reason is you get a lot, like the Super 80, we use spoilers a lot of times to turn the airplane. And when you have flaps 40, the ailerons are less effective, and you get spoiler almost immediately when you move the yoke side to side, which makes a flap 40 landing, you're just like constantly moving the yoke side to side, counteracting the roll. So it's a lot sloppier. It's about a 5 to 7 knot speed reduction from 30 to 40, so we tend to use it, especially on wet runways in the Caribbean, because the braking action there isn't very good. And so that's the big difference there. Brake settings, we have 1, 2, 3, and max. We don't have to use them at all except for auto landings. And I prefer 3. It's because it's an accelerometer. It gives you a rate of deceleration based on what the setting is. 1 is hardly anything at all. 2, you pretty much overcome it with the thrust reversers. And 3, it's a nice combination because as soon as you touch down, they start to grab to give you a nice smooth deceleration. And then as you get the thrust reversers out, it doesn't really change the deceleration a whole lot, but it seems to be a much smoother stop than throwing everybody into the back of the seat in front of them trying to get off the runway. So it's some 7.3-isms. Tail strikes in the 7.3 are a big deal. You get more than about 10 degrees nose high rotating. Somebody's probably yelling at you one side or the other because you're looking at, I think it's like 11.5 degrees you hit the tail. On the HUD, on the captain's side, he gets a big flashing symbol screaming at him, tail strike, once it gets to about 11 degrees on the HUD. So anyway, trying to catch up. I got one more to catch up on 232, just downloaded it. So take care. Tailwinds. God bless.
Thanks, Jeff, for sending that in. A lot of good stuff about the 7.3, an expert 7.3 driver, and ex-F-15 driver as well. Yeah, the same thing on the 727. The standard flap setting for us was flaps 30, and then flaps 40 was like, you hardly ever did it. If it was like a short runway kind of thing where you'd, use that. But what else?
No,
Anything
yeah,
else?
he was mentioning angle of attack. That is correct. The angle of attack at which you take off is always going to be the same. Yes, the pitch itself is going to change. The angle of attack. And I've noticed that American Airlines birds do have an AOA indicator on the top right corner of the primary flight display. As far as the auto brakes, yeah, that's correct. On the 75, 76, 777, and 74s, we'd have settings from 1 to max auto. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and max auto, and as Jeff said, the deceleration rates vary. So you go setting 1 is 4 feet per second square, then 5, 6, 7.5, and all the way up to 11 feet per second square on max auto. And then you have a setting there called RTO, which is rejected takeoff. And the difference between the RTO setting versus the landing setting, so from 1 to max auto, is that the RTO setting is not a set deceleration rate. RTO is basically the entire 3,000 psi of the hydraulic system dedicated to the brakes. In the case of 75, 76, and 777, it's going to be the right hydraulic system, and on the 74 it's going to be the number 4 hydraulic system. So that's basically how it works. And yes, as Jeff said, as you start adding thrust reversers and spoilers, the brakes are gonna release because you're helping the braking system. And Captain Jeff's falling asleep there. The braking system is being helped by added deceleration factors there. But the funny thing is that a lot of people think that if you set auto brakes to 3 and then all of a sudden you select reverse thrust, you're going to stop sooner. No, you're not going to stop sooner. You're going to stop in the exact same distance. It's just that your brakes are not going to get as hot because you helped the brakes with thrust reverser and with spoiler. So that's kind of how that works.
I just love the fact that he called a Boeing sloppy.
We saw that in the chat room there.
We're going to call them sloppy Seattles now.
Sloppy Seattles.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you guys are kind of up against a time stop here, right?
Yeah, I have to pack for I'm going to be gone for 25 days this time around. It's my usual 17 days, and I picked up a little overtime flying, and they're in the middle, so I'm going to be all over the place. I got to pack for all the laundry and all the pre-prep work's been done. All I got to do is just kind of organize it and feng shui it and play a little Tetris with my rollerboard and make sure it all fits in there. So.
And I've got a flight to catch tonight. Go back home.
Okay. Well, I think you guys should go then and get ready to take Steph to the airport and have a great flight back home, Steph.
Thank you.
And Rick, 25 days. What a short trip. Wow.
It's a short little trip, but it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be, it's gonna be great catching up with you guys and gals on the road. I'll be on the other side of the world here and there, so it's gonna be fun to make it line up, but we'll make it work. It's gonna be fun.
Are we gonna check out? We should have test driven the new setup for you. Are you gonna take that with you and try that out? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's part of my do not forget equipment.
Don't forget the XLR cable.
I've got it's all on here.
Make sure he's got.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Safe flying, both of you.
Thank you, Nick, and we'll be in touch, all you guys and gals. Great to see you guys again, and we'll see you very, very soon.
Absolutely.
All right.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
See ya.
See ya.
Cheers.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Is that the right lyrics to that? Or did I mess that up?
I don't know what song. I was just trying to work it out.
That's an American song.
Okay.
And the people in the chat room will tell you who it was. I can't right off the top of my head think who sang that, but let us do this next from an APG community celebrity.
Hello, everybody. It's Nev here, and I just thought I'd offer some feedback from a website that I often look at, which is called thebasource.com, and it's really all about ops within BA in terms of things like medical diversions or technical issues or aircraft substitutions. Really interesting stuff like that. But this one caught my eye, and I thought I would share it with you, and at the same time ask the flying fraternity some questions. This was posted on August the 15th, and it says that BA Boeing 747 Golf Charlie India Victor Victor, operating BA 174, which was JFK to London Heathrow, diverted via St John's in the early hours of this morning due to a medical emergency on board. Nothing that unusual there, I don't think. But it says that the crew did not have sufficient hours to reach London Heathrow, and therefore the aircraft diverted into Dublin, where a substitute crew had positioned to take the aircraft on to London Heathrow. Now, I don't know too much about crew hours, but I do know that often there is some discretion available to the captain and to the flight crew whether to continue on or whether to terminate the flight. And it may have been they had already gone through that discretionary period. I don't know, but the flight from Dublin to London typically is 50-55 minutes, something like that, so nothing huge. But of course, had they already gone into discretion, then they wouldn't have been able to continue the flight. But I'd just like some feedback from the flying boys and girls to see what you think about that, and what the situation is with regard to going into discretion, and does that discretion vary from one airline to the next? I would just like to pose that thought. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for listening. Take care. Speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nev, for your audio feedback, as always. And I believe that, that was Nev from Nev Tech. I believe that Captain Nick would probably be the best man to answer this, because it deals specifically with, you fly for the same country, operating, the operating certificate, I would imagine, is, and the work rules and fatigue and all that kind of stuff is probably very similar or exactly the same, right?
Absolutely, Jeff, because you're flying hours restrictions, your duty hours are predicated on whoever has your controlling authority is. So in the UK, it's the Civil Aviation Authority, or in fact now it's EASA, until we come back out of Europe.
What is it going to be next year?
Exactly right. And other countries have different limits. So the British Airways limits will be the same as Acme Red and anyone who operates under a British license. So that's the easy question there. Why he would go to Dublin after a diversion? Well, of course, he needs to get the aircraft as close as possible to London, because that's the easiest way to get a replacement crew to take it on. And they can fly crew into Dublin very easily to pick the airplane up, move it on. Whereas if he'd stayed on the other side of the Atlantic, that wouldn't have been a good option. And with regards using discretion, discretion is exactly what it sounds like. You're permitted to use it if you think it's appropriate. So there are two reasons he might not have used discretion. First of all would be that he felt that his crew were too fatigued to use it. And the other one would be he could just be playing ornery and go, I ain't going to do it, because it's entirely the captain's decision. He is the one who has sole authority over the use of discretion. My feeling is he would probably be working to max discretion anyway to get the airplane as far as Dublin. That might have been would probably have been the situation. And the reason he couldn't use an extra 40 minutes to get it onto Heathrow and land it would be because he had just run out of total duty hours with discretion. And because none of us want to dump an airplane at an airfield and then have to try and find our own way home. It's much more convenient for us and the passengers to get to our destination, even if it means we've stretched into discretion and gone right up against our duty limits. And it's only the fact that it's a absolute legal limit. You may not fly beyond your legal requirements, that he would have landed early. Having said that, it's quite interesting. If there had been some very good reason why he couldn't have landed at Shannon or Dublin or wherever, the first airfield he came across after crossing the Atlantic, say he had an emergency and those airfields were no longer suitable, he is then, in an emergency, allowed to break his duty limits and continue on a little bit longer.
So I hadn't considered that. So basically, if he had said, okay, let's go ahead and try to push this flight all the way and fly it, with discretion, that if he did have to land short, that would preclude him and the crew from continuing on, even deadheading. They would have had to stay.
No, they could passenger home because they're no longer on duty.
Okay.
Once they've landed and they cease their duty, then that's it. They just stand down and they can passenger home. Interested to know whether they would then get in their cars and drive home, because if they weren't fit to fly, they may not have been fit to drive, but that's a different matter entirely.
Right. Well, it was a good question, Nev, and expertly answered by our own Captain Nick.
Thanks.
So, we have some audio feedback from this guy down under.
Hello, Captain Jeff and the rest of the Airline Pilot Guy crew. As usual, thanks for putting out the great shows. And just wanted to catch up on a couple of things related to ballooning. Yes, I did hear your comments after you read out my feedback. Thanks for doing that. But the first one I'm going to start off with is from a little bit ago, where you were mentioning that balloon that was spotted up high. And yes, you are correct. That was Fedor from Russia doing the solo around the world in a balloon. He actually used a custom-built Rosier balloon. A Rosier-style balloon has got a gas center section, in this case helium, and then uses hot air from burners like you, pretty similar to the ones you'll find on most commercial and private hot air balloons. It uses those to heat up the air around the outside of the helium, and this helps you keep it buoyant, adjust the buoyancy without having to throw over so much ballast and things like that. Very old style design, way back in the original ones. A gentleman by the name of Rosier tried it with hydrogen and hot air, and that had the inevitable ending that you might expect. Boom. Nothing like naked flame next to hydrogen. And the newer ones are fantastic. Made by Cameron Balloons in the UK. Fantastic bunch of manufacturers there. They do a lot of the amazing special shapes and around the world kind of balloons. And I have a little connection with Fedor in this one because he was launching and landing in Australia, he had to have an Australian balloon pilot's certificate. CASA, the local Civil Aviation Safety Authority, our equivalent of the FAA, wanted him to have an Aussie license so that he could start and end his flight here in Australia. So as I'm the operations manager for the Australian Ballooning Federation, I was asked to review his credentials and confirm what steps he needed to do to get his Aussie license. And he's got quite a number of ballooning credentials, so they were able to use that. Plus, once he'd sat a few of our exams just to make sure he understood our radio procedures and our flight rules and things like that, we were able to give him his license. And I was a little bit involved, very much on the fringes, but been knowing about it for a few months now. And the fantastic part about it is his team on the ground is Met guys. In addition to Fedor being an amazing guy and not getting much sleep at all across the 11 days and flying at 20,000 feet, often without heat, oxygen mask, things like that. and his heaters weren't always working, so he was a pretty brave guy. Well, his crew on the ground, his meteorologist in particular, was so good that after 11 days and going around the world, including getting pretty close to Antarctica at one point, he hooked some winds that took him right down and then curved him back around and did a bit of a slingshot back up to Australia. He passed within 400 meters of his takeoff point. All that just by riding the winds. So pretty good control there. He pretty much nailed it. 400 meters after going around the world. That's pretty good in a balloon. Now I'm hoping to include an interview with one of his ground crew here in Australia, gentleman who was very heavily involved in organising everything from the Australian perspective. I'm hoping to get him on the Plane Crazy Down Under show shortly. We've started putting out some episodes again. Huzzah! So I hope to have that on. In fact, the latest episode we're just about to release has a whole lot of content from my fellow balloonists. And yes, balloon pilots, we were the first. They say pilots looking down on people since 1903. Well, balloonists have been looking down on people since 1753, I'll have you know. And many people say aeronaut or balloonist. I kind of go with balloonatic because we are kind of out there at times. And I've taken a lot of people up for their first ever hot air balloon flights, including combat jet pilots, transport pilots, warbird pilots, glider pilots. I've taken a lot of folks up for their first flights, and the majority of them have really loved it. A number have been, wow, that was weird and no control. You do actually have control so long as you don't try and go upwind. If you're willing to go where the winds take you and you're good at going up and down to different altitudes, you can ride the winds and have quite a bit of control over where you go. In fact, so much time that we do competitions. And with these competitions, judges say, take off here, go and throw your marker at a target over here and over here and over here. And in the world class, people are getting within centimeters of the center of the target. Very fascinating flying, and highly recommended that you look into hot air balloon competitions. But if you're ever down here in Oz, or if I'm ever in a place where you are unable to fly, I'd love to take any of you guys up for a flight. It's a lot of fun. And the fun part was taking an F-18 pilot up one time. He took a little bit of convincing of his own self to get on board a wicker basket under a big flame with a whole lot of hot air above him. But he normally punches the sound barrier every other day or so, and here he was. Had a bit of convincing to himself, stood off to the side for a bit and worked himself up for it, but he absolutely loved it. Took another F-18 pilot for a fly, and he thought it was fantastic, really got right into it. So, it's a lot of fun. There is a lot of lag. You put some heat in, and then you can take 5 seconds or so before the balloon starts to respond, depending on the amount of heat and the size of the balloon and so on. And, regarding the tragic situation in Texas, where 18 people died, that's really full on. A lot of people have said, wow, that sounds like a huge balloon. To be honest, in commercial operations, it's not uncommon to get bigger. I think it was 16 people, but that's about the size of a 300, which I used to work with when I was in commercial ballooning. I can't really comment on the specifics of the situation. I am hearing all sorts of stories. What I can say is that here in Australia, if you're doing commercial hot air balloon flights, you're actually held to the same standard as any other commercial ride giver, such as fixed wing or helicopters. You've got to have an air operator certificate for the company. You've got to be drug and alcohol checked. There's chief pilots who then review and assess. Every 2 years you get renewed. You have to be held to a higher standard with your exams. The theory exams are a lot harder, and your practical flying, you've got to have done here in Australia at least 75 hours pilot in command, which doesn't sound like much, but for a balloon pilot where you're getting 10 to at most 50 hours a year, you're doing pretty well. So as you can see, it can take an easy couple of years to get to the point, if you're going hard and really trying to fly, to get to the point where you can do your commercial. And that's when you start doing more training. Most people have got at least about 100 hours pilot in command before they get their commercial. And it's challenging. And then you have to fly for a company with an AOC, and you've got to be checked out by the chief pilot and fly every 2 years with a CASA approved check pilot, things like that. So Yeah, down here it's like being in any other commercial ride aviation industry, but yeah, very tragic. All sorts of things coming through to us about the Texas incident, and yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen in the future there, but yeah, that's a real tragic accident for a number of reasons. But anyhow, that's all the news. So yeah, thanks very much for reading out my response, my feedback, and I'm slowly catching up on all the episodes. I've got a little bit behind. The day job is keeping me pretty busy at the moment, but yeah, keep up the good work. Loving the show, and yeah, definitely got APG syndrome along with a lot of others, and keeps me pretty occupied on the commutes and when I'm doing chores and things like that. Thanks anyhow. Thanks for playing this message, and take care, everyone. Looking forward to maybe one day catching up.
Thank you, Grant, as always. And there was an episode a few ago that I said his name was Grant Heron, and I misspoke as Grant McHeron with the MC, like McDonald's. He is the producer of Southern Skies Online Media, also the host of or co-host of Plane Crazy Down Under. Plane Crazy Down Under, Australia's aviation show. Yeah, and great show too. Look forward to hearing the your latest episode. I don't know if it's out yet or not. And he's he added this on. Hi Jeff. Yep, I'm Grant McCarran, but hey, Grant is fine. I was born in New Zealand where it's pronounced Grant, then lived for decades in Australia where Grant has a short A sound. Then after living in Boston for 3 years and Buenos Aires for 2 years, plus working in Asia for a few years, I'm happy if it even sounds close to Grant. Keep it happening. Loving the show. P.S. Remember, in a balloon, you're always landing with a tailwind. That G guy from Down Under.
Well, that kind of depends where the front of a balloon is.
That is true. Is there a front?
I don't know. Because, I mean, you could actually be landing... yeah, I suppose actually he's right, the toe in, but you could actually land backwards in one of those if you decided that the front was behind you.
Now I'm very confused.
Would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon?
And a balloonatic. I love that. Thanks again, Grant, for always love hearing from you and your very, very good feedback. Great feedback.
By the way, Jeff,
yeah.
Did you know the first 3 passengers to ever go up in a balloon?
Sounds like a joke coming. Yes. No, I don't know.
No, it's not a joke. This is a matter of fact.
Okay.
First 3 creatures ever to go up in a balloon was a sheep, a duck, and a chicken.
Really? Did they have names?
Montgolfier. Yeah, bar the sheep, quack the duck, and cluck the chicken. The Montgolfier brothers decided that because nothing had ever flown before, they wanted to see the effects of on the human life or animal life in a balloon. So one of their first balloons carried those 3. And when they survived, the Montgolfier brothers decided that, perhaps they ought to give it a go themselves.
Interesting. And so what were the 3 animals again?
It was sheep, a duck, and a chicken. And no, they
sheep,
weren't.
duck,
they weren't therapy animals.
Sounds like it sounds like a show title to me. I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
Or the name of a pub.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
Well, why don't we keep it down under? The Flying Kiwi writes in, and he said, I'm a bit late, but I'd like to add my 2 cents to the side stick debate. Although barely 300 hours I've flown in a lot of different aircraft. I pester people until they give up. I have flown an SR-21 and SR-22, both with the side stick. I've flown the left seat, in which I landed the SR-21, and I've flown the aircraft from the right seat of both. I found the aircraft was easy to control with either hand. The only issue I had was the throttle with my left hand. I knocked it forward at an inconvenient moment. In the left seat, there's no difference between flying the SR-22 or the Tomahawk I fly, both with only thumb and forefinger on the yoke or stick, so it's pretty much the same input. Although those leather armchairs in the SR-22 are much nicer. What I didn't like in the SR-22 is how hard it is to slow down. My friend who owned the SR-21 oversped the flaps on landing and burnt out the servos so the flaps would not retract. Now I think, but can't be sure, but the flap speed on an SR-21 is 100 knots, so he really wasn't paying attention. He had to fly to Thurweston. No, so he did a phonetic spelling for me. Turweston. On the maintenance agents for Cirrus in the UK with almost full flaps. A very slow flight, but luckily only about 100 kilometers. I found the speed would creep up on me on final, and I would be constantly adjusting my power and pitch. It would be interesting to hear how Dr. Steph or any other APG Cirrus owners found this on their first flights. Or it could just be a comment on my poor flying skills. Nah, I don't think so. I have heard that the Cirrus is a pretty slick airplane, which I guess is a good thing. The real annoying thing, and this I found, and in the TechNam as well, was the electric trim. There's just no feedback. Coming from the Tomahawk, where trim is a suggestion only, and the Cessna, which you can really feel through the wheel, I found the trim on the stick to be difficult to set and forget. It took me a long time to get used to. Anyway, great podcast, guys. Happy flying. Keep the blue side up, the Flying Kiwi. And Bill Duffy also had some feedback for us regarding the side yoke, and he sent it in via audio form.
Hey, Captain Jeff, Bill Duffy, and from Thoughts from the Flight Deck. So a little bit of feedback. I was listening to your last podcast, and there was that discussion again between, the side stick and the yoke. So I thought I'd share some observations I've had. So a few years ago, I was flying out of Republic Airport in Farmingdale, New York, and the school I was flying for had an SR-20, a Diamond DA-40, and a Cessna 172. So when you fly the Cirrus, which you were talking about, it definitely has a side yoke, and it's interesting. It's mechanical, and the elevator control is directly linear in and out, straight in, straight out, but roll control is a rotation, like clockwise, counterclockwise. And it's sort of nice. I liked it. It's a little bit of a heavy feeling aircraft, but it's a great, great cruising aircraft. I really liked it. The Diamond DA-40 was your traditional stick mounted on the floor, pivoting from the floor. It was a little gap in the seat, so you had, room to bring the stick back and forth. Nice airplane. I didn't think that stick being in the middle of the seat was really great, but hey, that's what it was. And finally, there was the traditional Cessna with the yoke. I've also had the opportunity to fly the Cessna Light Sport, and that has the yoke in the center, and it's got a single handle, sort of like the Cirrus, in that in and out, directly in and out, is elevator control, pitch up and down. But instead of rotating right and left, clockwise, counterclockwise, like the Cirrus, you actually slid the yoke left and right. So 4 different ways of getting the same job done. So here's the interesting part, is that really when you jump in the plane, your mind adapts to it instantly. I've never jumped into a plane and said, oh, this is weird feeling, or this one is more difficult than the other one. They really just all fly. And I like the advantage of having the open cockpit with the side yoke. There's no doubt about that. Even though I think the plane's a little bit heavy for primary training. So I just thought you'd find that interesting. Now, yours is a little bit different in that the side yoke on the Airbus is not directly controlling the surfaces, and it's through a computer, and that I've never experienced. And I think that's probably more interesting than the differences between these two. But I don't think I'll ever get to know that unless someone has a sim they can lend me. So that's just my quick feedback, is that it doesn't really matter which plane you're flying. Your mind just instantly adapts. Enjoy and love the podcast. Bye.
Yeah, I think you're right. Our brains are amazing things, and after a little break-in period, I think all of us kind of just get used to the feel of the controls and that kind of thing, and adapt to whatever control input is necessary to fly it.
Absolutely, Jeff. I mean, it didn't take me very long to get the idea of side stick and the Airbus, but it takes a little while to build up a level of finesse. You can make it work, all right, but when the conditions are poor and the wind's blowing and you just need to be able to work the airplane a little bit harder, that's when you need a few hours under your belt. But other than that, it's a very simple airplane to fly.
Excellent. Yeah, I found that I have not flown anything with a side stick myself, but I have flown airplanes with the stick in the in between your legs, and I'm talking about the aircraft controls. And then the kind, and then of course the standard conventional yoke. And yeah, you're right. It just, you get used to it almost immediately. Okay, this is the way we, climb and descend and turn in this particular airplane. And it, honestly, going from right seat to left seat wasn't really that. I thought it was going to be more of a big deal, but it really wasn't. After a while, you just kind of go, okay, instead of, patting my head and rubbing my tummy, now I pat my tummy and rub my head. So it's just like, okay, now I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I must admit, I never found it quite so easy flying left-handed, but after so many years now in the left-hand seat, I guess I can do it almost as well as my right hand.
I think it's probably because, or maybe because your dominant hand is your right hand, right?
Very much so.
Yeah, mine too. So I'm wondering if it's the opposite for the left-handers out there.
It might well be, yeah. But having said that, a lot of left-handers pretty much ambidextrous because there's so many things they have to learn to do with their right hands. They're usually pretty capable with both.
Yep. This is a time-sensitive message from Dispatch Greg, and I want to make sure we get it in on this episode before we come to an end. We're going to be coming to an end here probably in 20 minutes or less, so I thought I'd throw this one in here. Dispatch Greg says, just thought I would pass this along for people who are interested in getting their dispatch certificate. The Airline Dispatch Federation is offering a scholarship to people who are interested in pursuing their dispatch certificate. The deadline is September 30th to apply, and this is easy. You don't even have to write it down. It's the website is dispatcher.org. dispatcher.org. Have a great day. So thank you, Dispatch Greg, for giving us that information, and anyone out there listening in APG land who are thinking about becoming a dispatcher, you should check it out. Get some money. Get a scholarship for that. That'd be nice. Let's see. I did want to make sure that I played this as well. This is from somebody that has been with the APG community for quite some time, and in fact, one of the early on meetups that I did with a few fellows in the Baltimore area. One of them was this guy. His name is Captain Cool, which I think is a really cool name to have. So let's hear what he has to say.
Greetings, Captain Jeff, Captain Nick, Dr. Steph, Miami Rick, and the rest of the APG community. This is Will, aka Captain Cool, coming at you from Studio 205 at the Spring Hill Suites near the LaGuardia Airport in New York City. That's right. I am now an airline pilot guy. Not to be confused with the airline pilot guy, because there's only one of those, and that's Captain Jeff. But I am very excited and very proud that I am now an airline pilot. So I will pause here so you can cue the applause.
Oh, okay. Right now.
Yeah, so I work for a regional airline, and we fly different routes for a lot of people. So we'll have to decide on what brand of Acme to call my airline. It could be Acme Connection, or Acme Shuttle, or Acme Express. And then in December, we'll also fly as Acme Eagle. So maybe just for simplicity, we can just call it Acme Regional or something like that. But yeah, my last feedback was over a year ago, and as you can imagine, it's been a very busy year. So my wife moved out to Columbus, Ohio to do a program out there. And so then I moved out there and did some flight instruction out there for a little bit. And then I did a accelerated multi-engine program, and I was a little nervous about that because I've never done an accelerated program before, and I'm kind of more of a slow, methodical, thorough kind of learner, I like to take my time and just hit the books, and this was an accelerated program. In theory, it can be done in a weekend, but we had some weather issues, so it took a little bit longer than that, but it was actually fantastic, and the training was great, and I learned a lot, got my multi-engine rating. Then I started looking at different websites and just putting myself out there, and with the flight time I had, I wasn't sure who would be interested and, what jobs would be available to me. Well, there turned out to be a couple opportunities, and I took one in Omaha, Nebraska for a Part 135 operator flying the Aero Commander 500B, which is a twin-engine piston airplane, and it's known as being the aircraft of choice for Bob Hoover. He flew a later model, the Shrike Commander. And then also, interestingly, at one point in time, it was briefly used as Air Force One. So without getting into it, anyone that's interested can search the internet for more information on that. But it was cool to be in Omaha because that's where my family is. That's where my stomping grounds are. And I was able to spend some time with my family and my friends back home. So I did that for a little bit. And then as I got close to the all the times that I needed, the 1,500 hours and the multi-engine time and everything, then I started putting myself out there again, applying to different regional airlines, and got a few interviews and got a few job offers. And so obviously I accepted one, and I've just been enjoying it ever since. I'm not going to say that it's fun all of the time, because it's hard. You have to read a lot, and you have to work and study really hard and apply yourself. But I kind of enjoy that anyway, and I've always enjoyed school and academia. But yeah, so I started in May with indoctrination, then moved on to Sims, and then did my IOE. And I know this will be music to your guys' ears. I've been able to hand fly a lot. My company promotes automation, and so we have glass cockpits, and we use automation, fully coupled autopilots with vertical profiles, and that's really cool. But they also encourage us to hand fly, and so I've taken the airplane all the way up to just below flight level 290, which is where you're legally required to have a autopilot. Because you get into RVSM airspace. So that's been really cool. And just realizing that, hey, this jet, it's big and it's fast, but you know what? You treat it almost kind of like a Cessna 172. Obviously, there's some differences, and I'm overgeneralizing, but I had some struggles in training, and one of the things the instructors said that made a lot of sense and really helped was just make the airplane do what you want it to do. Just fly the airplane. And, I had in the back of my mind, you have this big, sleek, fast jet with over 70 people in back behind you. And, I was having a tendency to like baby it too much and being too soft and gingerly on the controls. So anyway, the instructors were great. They helped me a lot, and they were really interested in everyone's success. And that was really refreshing, because going into my first Part 121 airline job, I really didn't know what to expect. And it was just great to have that kind of support and encouragement from the instructors. And when I say they're committed to student success, I don't mean to imply that they're just trying to push people through and they'll pass people. I was thoroughly impressed that they have a standard, and they trained a standard, and so that made me feel really good about the company and about the industry and the environment that I was working in. So anyway, I know this is getting a little long, but it's been over a year, so it was a big update, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for just the little tips here and there, and just the constant source of good information and stories and entertainment. But I am now talking to Captain Jeff. I want to thank you specifically because way back when you came to Baltimore, it was episode 101 titled "Baby It's Cold Outside," because you'll probably remember it was beyond cold. There was just snow and ice everywhere. And I think you had done a couple meetups with some individuals, but you had done the first group meetup in Baltimore at the Heavy Seas Ale House. And Baltimore Brian and John and Hillel and myself were there, and it was a night I'll never forget. And you are really responsible, and I want to give you a lot of credit for really turning me on to the airline industry as a career, because prior to your podcast, it's not something that I had really given much thought to or considered. So I just really wanted to thank you for that and for everything else. And I also want to take this opportunity to give a shout out to my friends, Baltimore Brian, who also is working for an airline based in St. Louis, and also our friend John. He doesn't really have a moniker or a call sign, but I guess for now we can call him just about there John, because he is super close to getting his commercial certificate, and then a lot of opportunities are going to open up for him as well, I'm sure. So I'm just want to say hi to them. And actually, they're the ones responsible for introducing me to this podcast. So there you go. And I also wanted to conclude by just giving encouragement to anybody else listening who is considering this as a career. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of work, and it certainly takes a lot of money. But the industry is just such a great one to be in, and it's fun, rewarding, it's challenging, it's exciting, and it's a long road. It's not an easy road, but you learn a lot about yourself along the way, and it's all about the journey. And when you get to the destination, it's just an awesome place to be. So thanks again, everybody. Captain Cool signing off.
Wow. Again.
And I'm back already. Oh, it is tomorrow. I don't know what day it is, so we'll just say tomorrow, because I recorded the rest of this yesterday. I hear pilots have that problem a lot. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify that I'm still going by Captain Cool because it's a really cool nickname and I like it. And but I just wanted to clarify and clear up any confusion that I am a first officer at my airline. There are some airlines that have direct entry captain programs, but that is not me. But I'm still okay with being called Captain Cool because I still am a captain in the Civil Air Patrol. So there you go. But the primary purpose for this addendum is I forgot one of the most important parts, and that's bragging about my jet and telling everybody what kind of airplane I fly. So it's the Embraer E170 and 175, and I'm including a picture so that hopefully it can go up in the show notes and everyone can see how happy I am with my slick, fancy jet. And I also wanted to say one other thing about hand flying, because I talked about, going up to the flight levels, and then yesterday coming into Washington D.C. from New York, we did the Clipper 1 arrival, and that was really awesome and really sweet, because we go right by D.C. and I saw the U.S. Capitol and the National Mall and all the monuments out my right window. But my captain was coaching me, and he warned me that they're going to try to dump me and turn me real quick, and suggested turning the autopilot off and hand flying the approach. So that's what I did. And we did the Mount Vernon visual, the runway 1, and banking and turning over the Potomac River and trying to get down quick and cross the Woodrow Wilson Bridge by a certain altitude and flying up the river to land on runway 1 was pretty exciting, and that was all flown by hand. So anyway, take care, everybody. Thanks. Bye.
Okay. Any more? Okay. Congratulations. And to all of us, you'll always be Captain Cool. That's his real last name, Cool.
Oh, really? That is brilliant. And isn't it great to hear someone with such enormous enthusiasm for his job? I know those of us who've been doing it for a while do get a little bit cynical about it at times. And he's just overflowing with good feelings about what he's managed to achieve. So well done, mate.
It really does, as you said, having done this for so many years, as Captain Nick and I have done, it's easy to kind of, forget, the excitement when you first get into it. And honestly, I had not listened to this at all. I didn't know he was going to, be thanking me and thanking the show for, encouraging him to get to where he's done. And it just, it chokes me up a little bit. So it's kind of cool that he put that in there, and it's good to know that people are, that we're encouraging people to pursue their passions, and we look forward to hearing more from Captain Cool in the future. I'll put the couple of snapshots that he included with his feedback, his jungle jet, and a picture of him sitting in his first officer seat at the new airline. So that's really, really great, and can't tell you how happy I am for you. And I remember a lot about that first meetup. It was a good time. It was very cold though. And of course, what would an Airline Pilot Guy show be without the best part of the show? I say the feedback's the best part of the show, but this is part of the feedback, I think. And of course, it's the latest installment of Plain Tales. Here we go.
The old pilot's plain tales. Whoosh, bang, oops.
Many rumors and whispers surround a bizarre event that occurred during the Cold War. Not between NATO and the Soviet forces, but between two Royal Air Force fast jets. I was lucky enough to serve and fly with one of the characters involved, so I got the story from the horse's mouth. Please remember, dear listeners, that this occurred some 30 years ago, and my recollections may not be perfect. But imagine yourselves in the front lines of the Cold War, Royal Air Force, Germany. A deadly serious game of World War III is about to be played out. It is in the wee hours of the morning at RAF Wildenrath when ghostly sirens start to echo around the base, the barracks, and in the nearby married quarters. Wives curse as their young children wake and start to cry. Their husbands stumble out of bed, grabbing their flight suits, pre-prepared overnight bags, gas masks, and their nuclear, biological, and chemical clothing. Running out of their front doors, they can hear the Land Rovers driving around the area with loudspeakers blaring,
Tachyval, Tachyval, Tachyval. Exercise, Tachyval. Make your way to your place of duty immediately.
This was the start of a regular formal NATO assessment of Wildenrath's ability to go to war. Assessors and exercise umpires had just descended on the base, waking the station commander rudely from his sleep, telling him to put his airfield on a war footing. The success of the next few days would be a mark of his ability and that of those under his command. At the squadrons, the engineers were already starting to bring the aircraft onto state. Live weapons were being loaded to the Phantom fighters, 4 Sidewinders and 4 Sparrow missiles to each aircraft. Pilots and navigators reported to the operations room, were allocated aircraft and told to put them on readiness. Around them, there was furious activity as every part of every unit was being marked on their ability. As the exercise progressed, the war developed. An entire war scenario, from initial incursions to full-blown attacks and even nuclear Armageddon, was to be reenacted. Engineers dealt with bomb craters, medics with mass casualties, and the guards kept out intruders. In the air, the Phantoms took on fighters and bombers from other units, playing the part of mass Soviet raids. The crews measured their success with simulated kills. For every bogey that they engaged and claimed as a kill, they must record the time, position, heading, height, type and missile used, but most importantly, they had to produce a film of the radar scope, showing the target within firing parameters when the trigger press witness mark appeared. This took skill from both front and back seaters. In the real world, a Sidewinder needs no radar to be fired. It's a heat-seeking missile, and all that is needed is for the pilot to center his target in his weapon sight, listen for the growling acquisition of the seeker head, and fire the missile. From around a mile behind, the missile is going to take only 3 seconds to cover the distance, doing around 2 times the speed of sound, and the wreckage of a downed aircraft would be proof enough. But this is an exercise, and proof was required. The exercise target aircraft weren't going to cooperate whilst they were engaged. They dropped into the weeds, weaving to make the job as hard as possible. In the Phantom backseat, the nav struggled to pull the target return out of the mess of ground returns as he used his raw pulse radar, which showed him every tree, building, and the very earth beneath him. But without that clear return of the target, the Tachyval weapons assessors wouldn't give him the kill. So what to do? Well, let's see. If they could find an easy target to film, say a Jaguar at 1,500 feet in the nearby Bergen instrument pattern, they could take some film of it, because that would show up nicely. And when they found a real target, they could show the assessors the good bit of film. It wasn't like they were cheating. They would still have to make a real engagement. And being good fighter pilots, they would never claim a kill out of range. Back on the ground at Wildenrath, the exercise was almost over. The station had been working 24 hours a day, and everyone was tired. Many sorties had been flown with both live armed and unarmed aircraft. It was quite usual. Inside the cockpit, the differences were few. An unarmed aircraft has simulation plugs where the weapons go to fool the aircraft into believing that real weapons are on board. A pylon carries a dummy Sidewinder with a real seeker head so that acquisition could be practiced. When an engagement was carried out, all the attack checks were done, including making the master arm switch live and pulling the trigger. The crews, after all, were training for war. With live weapons on board, however, there were a few exceptions. A piece of white tape was wrapped around the master arm switch to remind the pilot not to move it, and the navigator pulled the circuit breaker controlling the trigger circuitry to ensure that no firing pulse could be conducted to the weapons. A crew took over an unarmed aircraft and put it on state, ready for scramble. The pilot checked the Form 700 and signed it, taking over the aircraft from the engineers. He and his navigator climbed up and cocked the vast fighter, preparing it for a quick scramble. Flopping down into convenient chairs, they waited for the call. The telebeef blared into life.
RAF Wildenrath, alert 1 Phantom.
They listened carefully, and their call sign came up with instructions to man a nearby cap, a combat air patrol. The crew sprinted to their aircraft and clambered up the steps. Strapped in, the pilot fired it up, but damn, there was a problem. This one wasn't going anywhere. Jumping back out, the crew shouted for a spare aircraft. Being late to achieve their scramble time was going to be a black mark. 100 yards away was the spare. Grabbing the Form 700 while he ran, the pilot scribbled his signature, but not before he checked the weapons load. This one was recently fully armed. Indeed, he had to run past the yellow danger armed aircraft signs that surrounded it. He did a quick walk round, noting the 4 gleaming white Sparrow missiles snugged into the aircraft belly and the 4 bright Sidewinders on the wing pylons. Jumping in, he began his start routine. Before long, the 2 Rolls-Royce Spades were gently snarling behind him, and he taxied out. The reheat streaked behind the mammoth fighter as the snarling turned into a full-throated roar and the aircraft got airborne. Back on the ground, an armourer with a roll of white tape was looking for the aircraft. "Where the hell's X-Ray Mike? I need to put the tape on the master arm," he asked. "Too late, mate," his sergeant replied. "It's gone." The armourer shrugged and sloped off for a cup of tea before someone gave him another job. Airborne and transiting to their play area, the Phantom crew were alert and ready for some action. They were well trained and had performed hundreds, if not thousands, of attacks during their careers. Their everyday drills were frequently practiced routines that they could do almost in their sleep. The navigator was looking into his scope when he spotted an aircraft not far ahead.
20 left, 15 miles slightly above,
he said. The pilot turned the aircraft to center the target. They weren't at their cap location yet, but this would be a great opportunity to get a bit of radar film for the inevitable low-level aircraft they would soon be engaging.
Let's get some film of this, shall we?
He suggests, and the crew close on the unsuspecting target. Sitting comfortably in that target was a Jaguar pilot, downwind at 1,500 feet in the instrument pattern of his airfield. He was completely unaware that he was about to take the lead role in a very dramatic event. In the Phantom cockpit, everything looked as it should. Missile lights glowed just as they always did. The selected Sidewinder missile had started to growl as the seeker saw the glowing jet pipes of the Jaguar bomber ahead. The navigator called the range as the target tracked down the scope. Approaching a mile, the pilot ran through his attack checks, his procedural memory taking control, and, as he was trained to do, put the master arm switch on. The navigator turned on his radar camera to record the kill and called 1 mile. I try to imagine what it felt like for the crew when, at that fateful moment, the pilot pulled the trigger and heard the entirely unexpected thunder of the winder coming off the rails. The almost paralyzing shock and realization of what had just happened. It certainly didn't take long to play out. The missile accelerated to over Mach 2 in its own length and headed unerringly towards its target. There was no stopping it, no way to turn something off or make it self-destruct. In desperation, the pilot shouted over the radio,
"Jaguar over Germany, eject!"
The missile's engine was nearly smokeless. By the time it reached the Jaguar, it was almost burned out and the missile was coasting. It passed under the aircraft very close to the jet pipes, and as the target aircraft cut the fuse's radar beam, it triggered the warhead. The explosive ignited, and the rods surrounding it expanded into a supersonic expanding circle of destruction that cut through thin aluminium and aircraft vitals with ease. In the Jaguar, the pilot's day had just become a lot more interesting. He never heard the call, and luckily no other Jaguar pilots on the frequency decided to obey the strange request. Behind him, there came a loud bang, and his centralized warning panel lit up like a Christmas tree with an unprecedented number of red and amber failures. He didn't have time to worry too much as the control column in his hand went slack, and any efforts he made to pull up the fast-dropping nose of his aircraft failed. Reaching between his legs, he found the ejector seat handle. Settling his head back into the headrest, he pulled it hard and let Martin Baker take control of the next few seconds of his life. Dangling in his aeroconical parachute, he watched his tailless aircraft spiral down into the fields of Germany. In the Phantom cockpit, one of the hardest things they had to do next was to persuade someone they'd actually shot down a Jaguar. Trying to get the message across that this was a real kill and not an exercise one was near impossible, but by the time they taxied their aircraft in, the message was starting to get across. They suffered the inevitable debrief several times in front of flight commander, squadron commander, and then station commander before being sent home. Unsure what was coming next, they knew one thing: they had to make things good with the Jag boys. Their airfield was only a few miles apart, so they popped into the mess, picked up a barrel of beer, and drove over to the bomber base. In their mess, the Jaguar pilots were gathering for their regular 5 o'clock drinks, and they looked at the Phantom crew with great suspicion until the barrel was produced, whereupon, pilots being pilots, much beer was consumed, and almost certainly all was forgiven. The story now becomes rather sordid. Realizing a court-martial might be in the offing, the Phantom crew were sent packing, and once the RAF police became involved, they were arrested. The charges they faced varied from attempted murder, attempted manslaughter, and I imagine many others like firing a missile outside of a designated range or destruction of Her Majesty's property. Facing some potentially very serious criminal charges, and with little support from the RAF, the crew hired a barrister. Their Queen's Counsel, with the aid of experts in human behavior, successfully proved that if you train someone to do a set of actions every working day, it becomes an automatic behavior. If every now and then you expect them to do something subtly different, eventually someone will revert to their normal training. Without the visual cue of the white tape over the master arm, the pilot did just what he did every day of his working life. But what of the final safety procedure, the pulling of the trigger circuit breaker? The nav did as was expected of him, but it was discovered that the additional books he carried, like authentication codes and war procedures, in his leg pocket, pressed against the CB, and it only needed to be moved a couple of millimeters to make contact again. It was never designed to be a switch after all. The crew successfully fought their case and won. The pilot, disgusted with the whole affair, left the service, but after a few years rejoined. The navigator continued for a long and very interesting career in the Royal Air Force, and the unfortunate Jaguar pilot survived the incident without injury, only to have to abandon another Jaguar not long after. But that is another story. My thanks to Lucas Diamond, the Flying Kiwi, for asking me to recount this story.
Ah, another masterpiece. What a story. So how was that court-martial procedure, Captain Nick? Was that hard on you?
Well, personally, no. I listened with great interest, though, because, I mean, it happened in Germany, and we didn't find out much about it until one of the crew members was posted to our squadron.
Oh.
And I flew with him many times. He was a wonderful guy. And you put a few beers into him, and he'd happily tell the story. I think both the crew were a bit upset that that they tried to deal with them so heavy-handedly. But they had to pay for the barrister, which is not an inexpensive thing, out of their own pockets. So they got away with it. But that's just another one of the classic RAF incidents. That I've got a few more.
I'm glad about that. I'll bet that they were just very, very glad that they didn't kill the guy.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. And I don't think that would have been the same reaction. And I probably wouldn't have told the story had it not had a happy ending. But I just love the idea that they grabbed a barrel of beer, stuck it in the boot of their car, and drove straight across to the base and pitched up, going, "I think we just shot one of you blokes down."
we bring gifts.
Yeah, exactly.
Have mercy on us.
Yes, and I do believe they were having a great party till the station commander of RAF Bruggen said, "Hey, aren't you two the blokes that just shot one of my Jaguars out of the sky? Get out of here!"
So Lucas Diamond is the one that suggested this story, huh?
Yeah. I don't know how long he heard about it, because it's not a particularly well-known story.
AKA the Flying Kiwi. And interestingly, a little nugget fell into our mailbag. And this is from Lucas, the Flying Kiwi. So doing some digging around 43 squadron paint schemes. There have been a few. Did the paint shop get bored? And what do I find? Holy cow. It's, what's FG stand for?
A flying officer, that is. FG.
Okay. Flying Officer Anderson. What a dashing young man. You'd be batting them away with sticks. So we'll definitely include this picture of a very young Captain Nick climbing aboard his F4 Phantom.
That was only shortly after I joined my first squadron, 43 Squadron.
Yeah, you look
And,
very, very young. You must have been, what, 23?
yeah, about that. 23, 24.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I was operational because I
Were you
seem
even
to have
shaving back then?
Probably not. I seem to have a Snoopy Joe Cool's badge on my arm rather than my squadron op badge, but there you go.
You were even a troublemaker back then.
Of course. Weren't we all?
That's awesome. Thank you, Flying Kiwi, for giving this little gem that everybody will enjoy seeing. Well, it's I think time for us to end the show. It's another long one. That's what she said. And as always, thank you again, Captain Nick, for putting in the time to do such a wonderful production. The production values are just getting better and better, which is amazing to me. How
very
it can
kind.
improve, but it's always interesting to hear these stories, and I learn a lot actually. If you want to learn a lot about the APG crew and how to join and get involved with the APG community, dear listener, you can head over to APG or airlinepilotguy.com. And there you'll find information about the crew, the community, the coffee fund, the apps, etc. Again, look at the Google Play Store if you have an Android phone or tablet. If you have an iOS device, an iPhone, iPad, you can download the free Airline Pilot Guy app in the App Store there as well. And let's see. So we talked about the website, the apps, social media. You can follow us on at APG Crew and Captain Nick, old.pilot, and I'm at Airline Pilot Guy. And again, the website has all the information from the other crew members as well, as far as their Twitter IDs and that kind of thing. We also are on Facebook. Who isn't? That's the facebook.com/Airline Pilot Guy. Anything else?
I think you've just about covered it. Slack, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, Slack. If you're interested in joining the perpetual chat room via Slack, you can contact Hillel, who was mentioned as attending that first meetup in Baltimore. And that's at Hillel, HI11E1. And once you've contacted him, he'll send you information about how you can join the perpetual chat room at Slack. And just a reminder, if you're listening to the audio, have never joined us performing, or not performing, but recording the, well, I guess we do perform a little bit, the live show on YouTube, live streaming. Information about that is also in the show notes and, of course, the website. We'd love to have you here with us, joining the rest of the great group of folks who join us regularly in the chat room. So anything else, Captain Nick, before we shut it down?
I think you've covered just about everything, Jeff. Well done.
All right. Excellent. Well, hoping that everybody has a great week. Thanks for hanging with us. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care and God bless.
Yeah. Bye, everybody. Cheers.
Woohoo!
Nice one, Jeff.
That's supposed to be Miami Rick.
No, I think he does it slightly higher.
Woohoo!
That's the one. Good job.
Man. Well, we knocked out almost all the feedback. Not completely, but there's a little bit one in there about flying medics that is pretty much aimed at Dr. Steph. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think
you did a good job.
Yeah. I'm surprised we actually got to almost all of it. There's an MD90 question in there as well. Oh, and that Beach 99 with the missing vertical stabilizer. I guess that one gets moved to the next one again.
You need to put it at the top of the next one. Perhaps.
Yeah, I keep doing that. I think I moved that from the 233 folder. But anyway, so let me get back here to the chat room. And so what did you all think about having access, or did you even know to the APG 234 folder of feedback? Was that something that's worthwhile to you, or do you think that that's something that you don't need or don't care about? I will let them stew on that a little bit. React to it. Yeah, good good job, Liz, for the iron fist of booting up a couple people
Yes.
out of the chat room. Oh, Father Corey's still here with us. Wow.
Yes.
All 3 hours.
Yes, you don't want to mess with Liz in the chat room.
Yep. I knew that was coming when I started seeing some of those comments. I thought, ooh, you're not long for the world. Okay. Well, all right. I know I definitely need to let you go, Captain Nick, because it's quite late there. Was it midnight? Midnight?
Yeah, half past. So
half
yeah,
past
I'm
midnight.
off to my pit. Still feels
Well-
like a pretty oven in this house, but there you go.
I hope that you feel better. I hope your sinuses clear up.
That's very kind.
And everyone else in the chat room, again, thanks for hanging with us. I know it's much easier for those of us in the Eastern, Pacific, or Central time zone in the U.S.
Mike is asking how he could have seen the nights.
Yeah, you weren't here at the beginning, Micah. Sorry. On the right now, I'm going to just announce that when we start these live recordings, that you go to airlinepilotguy.com/live, and on that page, you don't have to stay there because you'll want to be part of the chat room, and to do that, you need to go to the YouTube page. But you can watch the video only on the live page. But in the on that page, I put a little link to the APG 234 folder. But you know that I'm thinking about it now, I can also put it on the in the description on the YouTube page. So when people end up there, they can see it as well. So I should put it there as well. In fact, maybe that's just where I'll put it to begin with, and not worry about doing it in the on the live page, the APG live page.
You know, we could just put the folder out there, and then we wouldn't have to read it.
That's right. Just there's a folder.
Yeah,
you can listen to the audio and everything, and just do your own show.
And then
Wait
we
a
could
minute.
just sit and drink beer and chew the breeze.
Now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably not a good idea to share it like that to the public. Now everybody can do their own airline show.
Yeah,
Probably be better than ours. Not ready to retire yet.
Certainly not.
Anyway, all right. Well, it's probably likely time for me to eat dinner soon, and I need to go upstairs, see what's going on with the girls, and start doing the editing of this thing. And since, let's see, today's Thursday, so I should be able to get this out sometime tomorrow. So that's going to work as well.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Oh, by the way, you know, I've got an Atlanta next month. You know your schedule yet?
I do. Hang on. If you want to know my schedule, by the way, on the apps and the website is my Google Calendar, and I have a calendar called.
I'm trying to be. I'm trying to
Where
get
is Captain
in
Jeff?
touch with the app guy because my back door into the app to change my schedule hasn't worked for a while, and
okay.
He said he was having a few problems and would get back to me, so I must just give him a prod.
So I found it just easier, instead of having to put all that information and enter it over and over and over again, that I just basically, in the apps, I put a link to my Google Calendar, and then people can just see the Google Calendar, or you can just go to airlinepilotguy.com/ where is Captain Jeff or something like that. It's on the page. I don't know what the link is. I do need to. I thought I was going to be in Portland, Maine tonight, enjoying a nice meal with Maine man Micah, but this jury thing kind of ruined that.
Yeah.
Jury duty. Okay, now what was I looking for again?
I'm going to be in Atlanta.
my schedule.
I'm arriving on the 11th and leaving on the 13th.
Okay.
Of September.
11th through 13th. Well, you're arriving on the 11th?
Yeah.
Well, perhaps I can join you that afternoon, evening for a beer, because the next day I'm heading out on a 4-day trip.
Okay. Well,
I'll be
fine.
I'll be in Dayton, birthplace of well, that's where the Wright brothers were from. That's where they had their bicycle shop, and 2 Tampas.
All right. All right.
So
Well, we might better get a show done while we're out there as well. I know I'm supposed to be doing some kind of interview on the 12th. I'm trying to think. That nice guy sent us an email.
Oh, yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do
Yeah, George,
the F4 guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
He flew Vietnam War F4s.
Wow.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I look forward to chatting to him.
So what you said,
I-
when are you going to be back in? Okay, so you're going to be there on the.
So I
12th
land on
and-
the 11th. I'm there for the 12th, and I leave on the 13th.
Shoot. What time do I get into Dayton? We could always do. Oh, but it's a really early morning the next day. But we could possibly do the show while you're in Atlanta on
That'd be cool.
the 12th. Of course, I'll
That'd
be
be
in
cool.
Dayton. But yeah, that might work out.
Okay.
The next day would be better, but you'll be flying that day.
Well, I don't check out till like mid-afternoon, so it depends when we do it.
Because I get in kind of early to Tampa. I get in at about 10 o'clock. We could start
Probably
before
Steph
noon.
working during the
Yeah,
day.
this is always a problem.
Yeah.
Well, we'll work something out.
Sure.
But definitely, I can take the train down to Peachtree and enjoy a cold one with you while you're in town.
Oh, that'd be cool. Okay. And they've given me 2 bloody Gatwick to Barbados flights.
Oh, Barbados. Is that a good layover?
No.
Oh.
Long bloody way, one night, at a Gatwick, which I don't particularly like.
Oh.
Apart from that, it's fine.
Other than that, it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Yeah,
is the hotel nice in Barbados?
No, not particularly.
Oh. Where was that place that you were when you were trying to get some internet and you had to go? No, that was somewhere else.
That was St. Lucia.
Yeah, St. Lucia.
That's actually quite nice. That's a nice resort. And they might have moved the. I haven't been to Barbados for quite a while. They might have moved it. The last time there, it was a bit of a concrete, nightmare.
I've been there one time, and I was only on the airport for a brief period of time, long enough to pick up a nice bottle of rum. But it was when I was in the Air Force flying the C-141, and we were, I think we were coming back from a little operation down in, why can't I think of it now?
Bay of Pigs?
No. That was a little bit before my time. I wasn't flying when I was 3 or 2. Not Guantanamo Bay, but I was there too. The place down. No, it's the we rescued some students from
Haiti.
Thank you, Grenada. Grenada. We had a little special operation going on there in Grenada, and I think coming back to get some gas or something, we stopped at Barbados. Looked like it was a nice place. We have at least one APGer that lives in Barbados. I think his name's James. Pretty sure.
Well, we don't get a long layover, and the hotel's not far from the airport, and it's all a bit rough and ready.
Yeah.
So the old curmudgeon might indeed be flying to Barbados, Connor. I'll let him do the trip.
Oh boy.
Yeah. There you
All
go.
right. Well, get to bed.
Yep.
And everyone else in the chat room, have a wonderful evening, a great week and great weekend. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Absolutely.
Oh. James 6452 was in CAP with a SEAL team leader who was there in Grenada. Oh, neat. Civil Air Patrol. Neat.
Oh,
okay. Grenada is home of grenadine? I didn't know that. Wow.
That kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah. I never made the connection. Thank you, Micah. I love tequila sunrises too. I love tequila.
Mm.
All right, guys. Got to go.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Night, Jeff.
Good night.